There's for the issue.
Oh no, I can pick. Or if you want to add
The
something.
first one, the first issue in the issues, right?
Yeah.
Is Michael's code. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe.
Oh, sorry.
I stole the microphone. Yeah. Okay.
If there's any remote participants around, we're resuming. Sorry, we were muted, but we're resuming with the Nistan session. So, you already have.
Hello. Okay.
Sorry, please redo the intro.
Okay, so let's do the introduction again. So a few weeks ago, 3-4 weeks ago, we did a deep dive, part of the next 10, about advocacy and how can we help, let's say, the Node.js ecosystem as a whole, and what could be great idea to, and I'm sharing my screen also. I hope it's showing on Zoom.
Not because I'm sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and we found a list of specific points, like mostly two main points that may have subcategory on that, on bringing more people and more knowledge about usage of Node.js and more people being involved in Node.js. And speaking about Node.js today, if you ask pretty much everyone that is not here, they will all say, oh, Node.js is great to do an API, and most of the time it's all on 95% of use case, Node.js is an API and that's all. Well, Node.js can be used on pretty much everything from CLI. It's used on every front-end build solution, on back-end API, on scripting, can replace what was done in Python and Bash for long time. And you can bring that with a lot of other stuff. So this is the main topic. How can we bring and help Node.js being more visible, and maybe not just on the technical side, on to engineers that want to use something to build an API, but that Node.js is being advocated and used as one of the tools on all company. I think here we have company from pretty much everything, big company, startup, technical, non-technical across the world and everything. So just here we are seeing that Node.js is good, I guess, and used pretty much everywhere. But if you present and you have this discussion with C-level and you want to also discuss with them on sponsoring some initiative part to improve Node.js on some other part, one of the key topics is I don't even know what Node.js is, or because there is no, how to say that nicely, commercial people say like selling Node.js to everyone. I will just zoom a bit. Yep. Okay. So on some point, and I don't know if Wes or Marco, you want to jump on that, or if I continue and you add something, like depends. So I was just going to read out the main point of this one, but then if you want to add some other parts, yeah. So the three main points. First point was to discuss about having maybe an ambassador program. Like ambassador was a name. We can name it however we want. That's not really an issue on that. And the big idea here would be, as we have people doing triager, people working mostly on, for example, the website lately, and core contributor and other part, it would be to create and of course being championed by someone, a specific group of people to advocate about Node.js. This would be the ambassador program on this one. First one would be invite only, to not have 20,000 people trying to reach out to others, like having an approbation by Node.js and everyone to help them also. So the main idea is really to have people being able to produce content and article which are meaningful, not just on specific point that find just nice to have, but on a more global ecosystem also. This is the first point. I'm going through the other one also. One key point that we saw, and it was a big topic about next 10 for like the last 2 or 3 years, was almost no one other than core collaborator are really aware of the governance of the project and how it works, how everything is being discussed. And I would even guess even that everyone can join meeting and discuss about that. And the last one is to include corporate. And the last one is really about corporate, on how people can and how specific corporation we could have exchange with corporation to bring back story from specific use case on Node.js at scale to display that it's used pretty much everywhere and on a lot of different topics. So yeah, this is the introduction on that.
I think what we're hoping to understand here today, I think, is, do people think the idea of an ambassador program is good? Do we have enough people? Like, does anybody think this is something the Node project shouldn't be doing? Like, I think we had a few discussions around why we're going to invite people, and is that the best approach to this? But I think the concern is we can't promote everybody. So we need to be selective, and we're trying to, the goal is to improve the education available to users. So we get a lot of feedback of like, I looked up how to make X, and the last, like, the first Google result was like an article from 10 years ago. Where do I find something better? Right. And what we want to do is we want to say, oh, here's where you find something better. We've vetted, these people, and we're promoting the articles they're writing, and you can just go to this. Like, did we actually pick where we're gonna, what we mean by promoting their content? I don't know if we defined that, but like the Twitter.
So so the idea behind it is that like ambassador would create content and like reach out to the community to talk about Node.js, and like as in exchange for that they would get the visibility by having the Node.js I don't know, Twitter account or LinkedIn account reposting their content. And as we said, this is invitation only, so highly moderated, I think.
So yeah, Michael.
Yeah, I think that like the key thing that I would highlight is that I think in my mind it's an attempt to apply our collaborator model to this case. Like we talked about, like, can we review content and like figure out what content is good and like then promote that? And it's like, this would be more like, we're going to try and find people who have been doing contributions and who we trust to deliver good content. And then basically if they create content within the parameters that we've set, then we would ask that like it be promoted by the Node.js Twitter account. Maybe we add links somewhere. Like, I don't know. We basically, do the effect of the equivalent of giving people collaborator status, but in this advocacy side of things. And that's kind of like, that would be a new concept for us, but it's a similar pattern just in a new space.
Yep, Matteo.
So how would these interact with the OpenJS Speakers Bureau initiative?
I don't think that was discussed. I mean, the Speakers Bureau has been mentioned a few times, but to be honest, I haven't actually seen anything like actually, I haven't seen things promoted through that, or at least I don't, the things that happen there, I don't know that it is.
So what I'm saying here is the two things sound somewhat similar. Okay, the idea of the Speakers Bureau is that a good chunk of some part of the travel fund for the community fund of last year was used by people to talk at event or on behalf of the projects and other stuff. And the idea of the Speakers Bureau is, well, if you go and do that, we are actually, this is where it's a little bit more governed instead of being completely free form in terms of how is the message what is the kind of stuff that the speakers are going to talk about. So I actually encourage to have a sync with the staff at the OpenJS Foundation about this the Speakers Bureau, because it's somewhat similar in slightly different ways. Okay, so it's one is different. Okay, it's a different programs, but I think it's actually good to have a sync before formalizing a go ahead. Like maybe schedule a meeting with Kylie and Robin to discuss this and get an up to date view of that. I don't have it, so I know it was supposed to roll out at the beginning. They started to announcing it at the beginning of April, so maybe this is it's something that's going to happen sooner rather than later. But I had no, I don't know. Okay, so sync up with them so that this is discussed. Okay, and this is the first bit. The second part is something that it needs to be clear. Okay, it's we really should not be like a lot of the content that I am seeing, especially even today, being produced by so-called educators, YouTubers, tech influencers, you call them whatever you want. It's code that it's bad, like at a scale of, if I seeing a candidate writing this code, I'm going to reject them. So, and they are essentially promoting it in content, telling people this is how people should do Node. And I am like to like basic stuff like, writing a route without any validations in it, or not handling exceptions, or using a sync with Express. Ouch. No, sorry to put Express on the,
do it. Keep
on the spot.
Keep going. Keep going. Yeah.
But this is what I'm seeing. You can do a sync await find with Express. It's just Express 4 is not built for that. So you need to put at least a try catch around it. And even at that, you're probably doing it badly. Again, all those things are essentially a problem. And the fact that we keep, like, my worry when I see this kind of patterns shown, okay, I am a little bit worried on like, it needs to be clear when we reach out to individuals that, yeah, we want to take a look at the content.
That is, so just to be clear, I think one of the reasons how this came about was we were identifying the exact same problem. And we think that we can help shepherd those folks into a better place, but there needs to be a trade-off, because you can't just go to them and say, we need to review all your work, you're doing it wrong, right? Like, that's not a good way to do outreach. It's just not effective, right? I mean, like, so we want to provide something that's a trade here that helps them, and then we can help them do better content, and that helps us, because then we don't have people doing all this really, really bad stuff. So the idea was to try to address that very specific current situation that we have with popular content being pretty
Out of date.
Difficult.
Out of date.
Sure, out of date. Yes.
Out of date.
So we want to fix that. And so that's kind of what this is here to address. Do I think that that is going to be easy? I actually don't. I think even if we vet and we do invite only, I think we still have to have some people around to read the content. And that is, I think, called out in the, is it called out in the proposal?
I think actually, like, I think the challenge is we're not going to get enough people and enough bandwidth to review all of the content every time. I certainly think we could ask for, like, hey, post the content you're going to publish to give people a chance. But if we block on that, I think that's going to end up being, like, just too much, right? Like, if we want to say, it needs a thorough review every single time, like, who are the reviewers going to be who are going to jump in and review all these things? If we could line them up, great. But I think like my thought process is our collaborator model is, you know, yes, we have reviews, people get a chance to take a look at it, but we don't wait for like 6 people to review them or particular people to review them. And so like by trying to balance we find the people we trust to do a reasonable job versus, you know, maybe the opportunity to review, it'll actually be practical.
I mean, we could also pick the people and then just say, if you're concerned and you want somebody to look because you
Of course,
think,
yeah.
like, we trust you to raise your hand and say, did I get this right? Like, I think that's a pretty good relationship building opportunity for us to be a little bit more involved in the way these people are working and set them up for better success. So like, it doesn't need to be a blocking thing, but it could be a additional, like an add-on that they can, you know, request you know, if they post it in the repo, they can request review, or maybe they don't want to go public with it. So we might have to give away to like email us or something, a private link,
Yeah.
like something like that, but
Yeah.
some direct way to say, hey, I'm a content creator. I'm not even sure if I'm doing this right. Can somebody who's on Node Core like help me refine this? And then we could volunteer to help if it's an area we know about, or at least even just catch the simple things like make sure you mention security best practices when you're, you know, teaching people that like they should go, even if you don't want to cover it in your thing, call out that like there's a bunch of security gotchas here. Go you know, your beginners need to go research that before they ship something into production. That's the kind of stuff that just having some little gentle reminder might meaningfully move the whole education ecosystem toward a better, more a better place.
Yeah, yeah. So I agree. I'm just saying it needs, like, it needs to be clear it's not a free lunch. Okay. And especially if we want to promote content through our channels, I would say that the content that we promote through our channels has to be like, one thing is to say we are creating an ambassador program and saying these are the ambassadors, they have their own channels, they can publish whatever they want in their own channels. We can generically not have a say about this, apart from removing them from the program if they don't promote the wrong stuff. But if you need to promote content on our own channels, I think that should be vetted. Like, I'm not,
I guess the challenge is, you know, would you have cycles to vet that content every time, right? Like, I think that's the challenge I see we face is like trying to find a group who's going to vet all the content, giving the opportunity for people to do that, but to make that like, hey, it can't go out at all, I think is going to be a challenge.
Michael, we used to do that back in the days. So we had this Medium Node.js collection where a bunch of people were vetting it, and we were having a good time in doing these every more or less. The lead time was like a couple of weeks, even if not less. So I'm not. I
don't know that we published a whole lot to that, but
we didn't. No, that's what I'm saying. Okay, so this is what I'm saying. One thing is content that they publish under their own, or training programs that they publish under their own stuff. Okay, this is great. Okay, so this is their stuff. We don't need to. We need to just be available to say, hey, please take a look. We are here if you have questions. Be careful about those things. Be mindful of security risks, of crashes and stuff like that. Don't promote all bad patterns. Yes, perfect. Apart from that, those information, we need to, they do what they want essentially to on this content. On the one that we publish, on our, that we, you know, we recommend as key learning material, I don't see how, like if we put a link to let's put an example, okay? We want to include, we publish one of those, a video on YouTube, okay? I want to publish a video on YouTube on the Node.js Twitter account. Are we? Like, nobody take a look?
I think that's, I mean, this is the whole good discussion, right? Like, I think the idea was like, not that we would publish these things on, like, we wouldn't necessarily do the equivalent of like publishing them on a Node Medium account. It would be published on the individual ambassadors' channels. But like we would have, one of the benefits of becoming an ambassador is like if they told us it was content that fit our parameters, we would have the Node account retweet it, right? Like basically say, here's some new content from the community, right? That's not a, you know, that's a light endorsement. It's like it's helping to promote the content, but not necessarily saying this is from the Node project, right?
Okay.
And it's that
Yeah.
trade-off between like how much
I
if we have 5-10 volunteers who want to vet everything, I think that's a model we can look at, but I'm suspecting that would be hard to do.
yeah, I will still try to circle it, but yeah. Somebody else, John.
So no, basically I was completely agreeing with what Michael was saying, is that the main idea is, at least at first, we won't have enough people to vet everything, to review everything, to check maybe hours of video and everything. The main idea first would be to have people that want to work on some specific topic, and we would basically give them some reach by maybe sharing or retweeting some article that we would agree is in line, is not something covered 200 times in the last 2 weeks or something like that. So the main idea is really to provide to the community more up-to-date article, and maybe for specific newcomer or for user to be able to reach documentation that are up to date. Like we said, and I think it was saying that earlier, like today, if you are looking for pretty much anything around Node.js, you will find article 5 to 10 years old, especially like, and if you search how to write a server in Node.js, you will find an article being written 6 months ago to say, hey, use Express. So, and I think one part that is missing is Node.js everything was written pretty much really stable on a long scale of time. So articles that were working 7 years ago are almost working today. It's not the right way to do it today, but it's still working if you install the right dependencies, you follow some tutorial, some article. So yeah.
Like for me, I think it's an opportunity like to try and build a group of ambassadors that we can also message to in terms of like, here are the messages we would like to get out. Here are the things we're trying to like, you know, when we talk about say governance, like here's some, we would like people to do things about governance. It would also be an opportunity to say like, for this group, the concerns that Matteo is raising, like these are the things we see that are missing in the articles, and like communicate to them to say like, well, you know, for articles going forward, we'd really like you to think about addressing blah, blah, blah. Here's some like, it's as opposed to today where there's like a group of people doing their own thing, you know, and any content gets basically, you know, some things might get promoted by the Twitter account, other things might not. Like it's just, you know, I think it's ad hoc versus a, hey, we're trying to support a group of people who can get better at doing what we'd like, and publishing articles that actually support the project versus like talking about divisions and conflict within the project and stuff like that. But it does take the level of trust. It's sort of like the model of like, you know, we trust people to do the right thing. We give them the sort of like, you know, in terms of collaborators, we allow them to do things. People could do the right thing. Most of the time they do. And it's trying to apply the model in this case, which is, I know is different. So it's like, are people, you know, I can easily see, you know, people being concerned or like, hey, maybe that won't work in this case, or I don't know.
Owen?
Thanks. Yeah, I was just curious to some of the points that Matteo was raising earlier, maybe around like code conventions or best practices. Are there resources out there that do reflect that, or that are maybe evergreen as you know, the years evolve and the practices refine themselves? It could be like an evergreen basically like a style guide, right? Like, hey, if you're demonstrating async work, make sure you've got a try catch or something like that, right? And maybe we could use that to help promote, at least on the code side. I can't say that maybe it's not as easy on the content side, but maybe that's a thought.
There definitely is that content. I think it has even been promoted by the Node account at different times in the past, especially when it came from Node contributors. But we need more, I think, of that. And so I think a project, the project style guide is like the examples in the docs. So, I mean, I would say that kind of already exists, and we would try to always just improve those over spending time producing content that is more bloggy or narrative in nature, right? Like, so that's like why the goal of this is to have more people doing the work in that sort of form, whereas we're like the project itself needs to focus really on like improving the docs and the experience in the within those APIs, not forming opinions where it matters, I guess is the goal. And there's a gap in the content promotion, not the content existing, that we're trying to fill here, right? We're just trying to connect those people who are looking for that more. Here, you want to write a chat bot. Here's an example of a chat bot. And then like we just vetted that, make sure it had, the proper security things, and it wasn't using libraries that we don't recommend anymore, and yada, yada, yada. But like, or maybe we don't even check that, but we just trust that that user is keeping up to date with the ecosystem, and they wouldn't use, Winston or they would use Pinot. Like that to me is, I think, what we're trying to get at here. So I think it's not the project producing a style guide or more opinionated things. I think it's, we're trying to promote the intro level content, the deep dives that actually make really good sense for us to promote. That's the kind of stuff we're just trying to leverage those people better and promote them better, not to produce it ourselves. Yeah.
So I have a question. Okay, hello. Sorry. I have a question for the room and the remote too. Do you know that the OpenJS Foundation has official Node training? How many? Can you please raise your hand? I just want to know, how many? Okay. This is a question. Okay. Again, this is the fundamental. I just okay. It's there. Okay.
So the question is, how many of you have taken it and are certified? We're the collaborators, and none of us are certified with the. Oh, you are? Yes. Woo! Okay. Good.
When somebody says something.
Okay.
Jean is certified twice. He got it for free, and that is why he is certified.
If you need somebody, I can get a discount code to anybody.
Why would we get certified?
It makes no sense for us. It makes no sense for us to be certified. Okay, for collaborators and stuff, I don't think it does. But it makes.
If we have to pay for it, but how can we even recommend it if we haven't done it or seen it? Like, we should be able to watch a recording. Seriously though, I don't recommend it because I just have no idea what it even covers.
Yeah,
because I haven't done it or even been presented.
This is where I. So it's very funny that every now and then the Node.js website pops up a banner talking about the training and the certification, and we do not endorse it or even be thinking about, is this content that reflects the project, or is this, or it is something that we should be promoting more? Because again, as Wes said before, the stuff is already there. Okay, like how many of the people that are right now in the project in the room, but also like that are in the room, also remote, were in the this decision phase when that content was planned? So when with the certification, okay, so this certification, when the training and certification from the OpenJS Foundation was planned, and the content that was written down, what was going to be included, is there still somebody involved in that group that is still in the project at the time? Okay, wait a second. Yeah,
I was,
so you
yeah, okay. I was lightly involved when the first, because there, I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
If you're not aware, they were kind of like a reboot. So I
Yeah.
was in the first iteration when Tracy, is it Tracy was leading it? Yeah. So I was in the first one.
Yeah,
I was
no.
in the group who helped prepare the content. So, and it was pretty legit, yeah, from what I remember. But it's not what we ended up with at the end, because there was a whole reboot.
There was a reboot. Well,
So I don't
schedule,
know if it's
the
based on
agenda
that.
is mostly the schedule. The syllabus is mostly the same.
Okay.
The reboot was in the delivery, and now it was actually built.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
it was not a change in the syllabus.
Okay.
Okay, so
But that content was legit.
I'm just flagging it because it's something that would be, I think, that could be beneficial. Okay, but I mentioned the one from the OpenJS Foundation, but this is true, should be true for other other training courses, other stuff that we want to recommend. Okay, I'm not saying that this should be one, but again, I think it will be very beneficial to identify reputable sources that actually don't teach outdated patterns or bad practices or whatever we want to call them, okay, and actually list them on a reputable page on our website, because it's this is the only way in which we can promote good, so bless something, is by putting a link on our website. Like to some extent, it's so sorry about this. So something, if you are interested, okay, I think I don't have possibly problems in going and asking the folks at the foundation to give us to give collaborators a code to review the content, okay, so that we can check what's in there, okay, and see what's and see for ourselves, even if we want to change something, okay, because it's this content is being maintained and produced. There is agreements on working agreements, contract, also vendors that are being involved. So there's money flowing around this. Okay, so if it's something that we are like, there has been historically some distrust around this program, even by us. I don't want to make names, okay, but there was some distrust. I don't think it's beneficial, and I think we can. I did a pass on that. I was part of the team that actually reviewed the syllabus, and I also one of the people that also reviewed all the initial set of exercises. So I cannot take the certification. Okay, I have the exempt on it. Okay, but again, I'm just saying it's. I think I don't. To be honest, the certification is one thing, the training is another. Okay, it's, if you're looking for reputable sources, we should take a look at the reputable sources, vet them, and put them on our website, telling people, if you want to learn Node, these are the resources. And it can be a video training, it can be a book, it can be anything, but let's add, populate this. Okay, I don't know. Hopefully, this makes and that can be ambassador program. Well, that fits into that kind of discussion. Okay, but again, it's if anybody wants, please drop me a message. I would really love to get people a code to watch all of this. Okay, so that you can check it out. So if we are on board, we can put it on the promote a little bit more. Okay, or saying no, this is not okay. We want these 5 things changes, or it's just horrible. Please take it down. You know, I'm hopefully not the last, but at least it's something that I don't think it's serving the project in the right way at this point in time.
So no, I agree with you 100%. And just quick note on the certification and everything. I think the syllabus didn't move since 2019-ish, something close to that. And I don't even think and know if the expectation or because it's code related for everyone, it's not like a quiz or question to check or stuff like that. It's code related on everything. So, but I think that even the base code and everything didn't change and maybe was not updated. I'm not sure. We'll have to check.
I just want to add, I think this,
Okay.
It was updated, to repeat, it was updated to ESM.
Okay. But on the other point about giving more visibility to people that we acknowledge as being able to write good content and on any kind of shape, form, way is effectively something that would be great. Because today, if you check, basically, if you are new to the ecosystem and you are trying to look to how to write Node.js or server or anything using Node.js, you will always find the content with the most about like visibility, number of views, and stuff like that, which doesn't mean at all that is something that is relevant today, usable, safe, or a good way to do it. And it's even worse, like most of the content that you are finding, maybe even on YouTube, would be bad content that I would not pass on a formal pull request at work or stuff like that. So having that as the main entry point for a lot of people that are coming to Node.js and to the ecosystem to write some code and being like, no, this is not something that you should be doing, but they are not even aware of that is like, frankly, an issue.
I think the things like there's curating content, which I think is a little bit about, you know, what Matteo's been talking about, is like trying to find good content that exists and promoting that. That I think is a good initiative if we can find people who have time to do that. The ambassador program, I think, really in our discussion is really a slightly different thing. It's like there's some, you know, projects out there that have people who are like, you know, they're funded by a company or something. They pay people to go out there and write content. So they've got supported people generating content that, you know, is messaging things that they want to message. As like the Node project, we really don't have that, right? Like we don't have people we can pay to do this content. So the discussion was like, what can we do to support and encourage people to write content around Node.js so that we get coverage and we get more good content out there. So in my mind, it's as much about trying to support a group of people who will generate content. It's more about that than it is about trying to like find good content and vet it, right? Like those are two totally different things. One is trying to encourage people to be generating content, hopefully, you know, and of course we want to encourage people who we believe are going to do a better job than the general case. But it's kind of like, I think it's like a 2-1, you know, to go out and vet content, we can find a group of people who are interested in doing that vetting. And if we can find volunteers to do that, that's great. I think, you know, deciding whether or not we want to try and support people who are out there generating content in some way is maybe a different thing, which is what the ambassador program was meant to do.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. That was exactly what I was hoping to circle it back on. So I think these are, I think we have a takeaway here that is absolutely, we need to follow up with the foundation training and certification things, and we need to align a bit better on on how we promote that. And I think that's great. We probably need to talk with the website, folks working on the website as well, and get maybe a better strategy. Because I was just looking around and, it's just the one certification link in the title, I think, is like the only actual link out to that content. So maybe there's some things we could improve there with maybe a landing page that describes why that exists and what it does. So that's, I think, one takeaway. But I do think that this is meaningfully separate from that, because it does the things that Michael was talking about there. And so I think we could be doing both at once. I think the other thing that Michael mentioned earlier that I think we haven't come back around to a little bit is one of the benefits that we were proposing here would be that the people would become some level of status in the project itself. And that is something that I think we've circled around quite a bit on the, there's the governance of the project is very, very heavily skewed toward deep technical contributions as the only path toward project leadership. And the idea is to try to start opening a few more doors for that maybe aren't entirely relying on whether or not you can write C++. And this is one way that adds a ton of value to the project that isn't contributing to core. And so this was a idea of a way that we could do that. Now, I think there's other ideas that we could think about for that as well. But in this case, I think this one is just a really clear benefit to the project that also doubles as a nice way for people in the community who are being ambassadors one way or the other, whether that's giving talks at conferences or writing blog posts or making videos. And again, if they're really good and we've checked them out and say, this person makes great stuff, and then we bring them in and we have them, participate in the project in some way, that just increases our reach. It generally makes the project healthier by having more broad voices. We can hear from people who are sitting down with people who are installing Node for the very first time. And we can then say, what are you seeing in those classes, right? And having them in the project is going to just meaningfully help. Like, a new team member on your team at work comes in and reads all your horrible docs about onboarding. And usually if they're worth their salt, they like give you improvements, right? That's what these kind of people can bring back to the project that we are a little bit insular of as a group, because we're deep technical experts, right? Ideally, right? Like most of the people here have spent a lot of time going really, really dedicated, deep learning on Node. And we have learned things that we might not be aware that we're making changes that are making that first time experience really bad for somebody. I think we are, because we try to keep up with it, but like having that voice in the conversation is something we're kind of missing today. Again, even like, does anybody here other than Mateo, do this kind of content production? Mateo, I think, is the only, yeah. Okay, we got like 2 people. We could have more. And I think that's what this program is specifically designed to help us with. We would love those people to be at the Collaborator Summit. And if they have some position in the project via the ambassador program, then it'll make them feel a lot more comfortable here. And we want their voices. So I think that's where we're going, where we were trying to go with this proposal.
Yep, Michael.
Yeah, no, it's okay. That my hand's still up.
Okay. I think we have 10 minutes left. Right?
Half an hour, I think.
Okay. So I think we can move to one other point of the agenda, and there is also one thing that it's not on the agenda, but it's coming very soon. Is the survey. So I think it would be like very important to have your opinion on what is going to be included in the surveys, because we're going to ask the community about the technical priorities and like what they expect, like what they would like Node.js to be in the future. So if you have the chance and you want to participate, I will link the issue in the chat.
So just quickly on a few words on that. It's been, so we did a survey for the last 3 years, I think, since 2020. So it would be the fourth one about that. It's close to, like, the number of answers is something around 2,000 every time, with people from each continent, with surprisingly last year, it was mostly European people and a lot less people in the US, which was quite strange because most of the time it's the opposite. And a question we try to focus on having, we don't want people to spend 2 hours like answering a survey with 200 questions. The main idea is to have something short but meaningful that would help everyone to, like, and the project to take the right decision and everything. So we try to do that. So we always have a few questions that is about what's your country, which kind of company are you working on, and stuff like that, like the size and all. And then it's the last 3 years was about mostly technical topic, which architecture are you using, like CPU architecture are you using, which kind of project are you using for Node.js and everything.
I think this would be a good venue to ask, like, last year we added some specific questions about ESM. It'd be a good opportunity to ask people, are there any like key issues that we, would want to ask questions about that are, top of mind or specific to this year?
And also, what about getting feedback about existing, about new features that we just added, for example, the test runner. So how we could improve in that, like getting feedback, it's not really easy currently. So
that suggestion might be like add a question that says, do you use the test runner? Yes, no, and then like in one which would be like, do you have any suggestions for improvements or something?
So yeah, on this topic, we had like hard time to get feedback with open questions because people are lazy and don't want to, like, of course, like they don't want to write. And so the idea is to get like have very specific questions and yes or no for the most part, and like keep it short because otherwise people will get bored and just drop it.
Yeah, I think that's like, I agree in general, we want as many yes or no, but like if we look at the ESM answers we got a ton of answers, write-in answers. So I don't think we should try and eliminate the open questions completely. Just based like on last time, there was a ton of ESM things that actually were interesting.
and another thing, like Claudio post, I don't know if I'm saying it right, post on Twitter that getting feedback for the website, and it really helped a lot. Like it could be another source, not only for that survey, it could be another source if the official account could get some opinions from the community.
On the website or was that just an example?
On Twitter, on social network.
He's asking.
Oh, the purpose is for getting feedback about existing feature, for example, test runner, or anything else the major thing that we added, like the env support and things like that.
Michael, do you want to say something?
Sorry, I should have put my hand down.
Okay.
Did we have any other topics to add to the survey? I think that's the open question. So we think the test runner.
Yeah, are there any, like, should we just go and find the recent features? Like maybe it would be better people suggest them because some of them But like, I think it would be interesting, even if we just had a question that says, do you use, and check yes or no for some list of recent features, right?
Maybe not a super helpful suggestion. Corpac.
Yesterday, someone from the tooling team wanted to know about usage of parse args and a couple of the other things. So maybe that's one of those like yes, no sort of questions that we can add to that.
So just to address the Corpac comment, I think that what we should do is we should take these goals we're working on and we should ask people if they want us to solve those goals. So Michael, were you on that one yesterday? I can't
Yep.
remember. Okay, cool. So we had like some goals we're working through, and then we're going to be pulling those into the package maintenance working group. I think we could probably come up with a couple of questions there. What's our deadline to do that? Is it, to get the questions on the survey? Anybody?
Marco, were you?
Do you have a deadline for this?
Yeah, it's at the end of the month. I think it's the 24, 23rd, 23 of this month for the survey.
So we can try to do this in the package maintenance working group and open an issue with a recommended set of questions around binary management then?
I think it would be like, so, but you're saying, Marco, and that kind of matches like we're trying to get it out in April. So like in the next week would be good.
Oh, okay. That's a little faster. I'm just worried that we're not going to be able to come up with those.
Yeah, like, I mean, maybe 2 weeks, but like, I know how things stretch out, right? Like, so just trying to, it's not months that we're working on.
I think that we planned to have a final decision on the next 10 meeting, which is I think in 2 weeks. I'm just checking. Okay, yeah, it's on the 17th of April. So by then, I think we need to have a final survey, and then we can send it.
Yeah, and we did have 2 questions last time on like what package manager to use, and if you use a version manager, which one do you use? So that, but I could see in the current context tweaking those to be like give us more information that might help in our discussions.
Yeah, I think we asked which version manager you use, but I don't know if that gets to the heart of the questions we would think that we want feedback from, because that's just because those are the ones that are there a bit. So like we gotta decide if, like, I think the way we might maybe want to phrase some of this is like, do you think the Node project should take an opinion on, version managers for Node itself? Like if people generally think that they really don't want Node to ship its own version manager, like we should take that into account, right?
It's a piece of info. Yeah, like, so that would be, yeah, I could see like instead of asking which one do you use, we could replace that question, because again, we don't want this to get too long with a, do you think the project should choose a specific version manager to recommend or whatever, right?
Yeah. Like, do you want one way or many is like one way we could phrase it too, which is, I think it was a little point of contention in the discussion yesterday that maybe getting a broader audience would help with.
How can we add questions to, like, where can we see the current survey?
There's a PR that's open in the next 10 where people have been working on it so far, right? I think, Marco, you opened that?
I pasted the link in the chat and in the Slack channel, but yes, there's a PR on the next 10 and the next 10 repository, and like you can just collaborate on that.
So yeah, that's the best place to like suggest new questions or PR in like changes to the questions, that kind of thing.
John, what else do we have on the agenda?
So the last part, and it wasn't planned to reach that with time left. Do we want to discuss quickly about the corporate sponsorship / support? That was a discussion that started, I think, in Dublin a year ago, just before NodeConf. Do we have some takers and people that want to discuss about how can we bring more company being involved in Node.js and officially supporting Node.js, being by giving time to people, spreading love, giving money, everything we want, or no one cares, and then no one will be able to say that we need more people to contribute then. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't go on the queue, but I think I suspect that if the Node project had a way of accepting money to sponsor developers, then we could eventually get funding for this. I hope we can. Yeah.
So sorry. Just jumping on that with Michael, Marco, and Wes, I think during a Next10 meeting, we saw that there is a way to officially give money to Node.js projects.
Yeah, we already have a Linux crowdfunding account which we set up to take the project part of Bat Bounty award. So when somebody submits a HackerOne report, they can end up with a bounty. They modified that a few years ago so that like the person gets 80%, the project gets 20%. So we have one that's already scoped to that. We're actually using that to pay a collaborator to work on a security fix for the first time. But like we could expand that crowdfunding account for more uses, or we could create a second one, I think, if we wanted to say like, here's a general way to contribute to the project. We would have to come up with the governance for how we spend those dollars. I know that some of the other OpenJS projects have done that, and so we might look at their governance and so forth. But that's certainly one route, just to answer the point that John brought up.
Yeah, good.
So I think, as far as I can tell, there is like a mixed conception outside the project that the foundation sponsors engineering work on the project. That's not true. The foundation process some money from the OpenSSF on security.
The OpenSSF, yeah, the OpenSSF funds one resource, but yeah.
But other than that, other than security stuff, like from maybe not people in this room because we already know how the project works at this point, but like outside of the collaborative base, people are not aware, or like some people may have the impression that, oh, you have a foundation. That's how you sustain. That's how you financially, sustainably support project, right? Well, and some people may have found. I saw people like saying that something that was developed by the Node.js Foundation. Well, let's set aside Node Foundation does not exist at this point, but the foundation does not do any technical like engineering guidance or like sponsor any engineering work. I think there was probably like this misconception outside of our collaborator base that kind of like stops people from thinking about more from like because I also see people saying on Twitter like, is there a way for me to sponsor certain things for the Node project? People just are not aware that like foundation is not the way to sponsor certain things that you want to happen in Node Core. But sometimes you see that there is a foundation, then you can just use that to sponsor, right? That's not how it works.
Yeah, we need to improve the messaging. Like the public message around a bunch of these things is just missing today. So I think to the like, you can support Node with the Linux Foundation thing would be great, but we need to also document how that like that is not part of the like we have to just document how it works and what it goes toward, and like if you're going to sponsor there, it's just you're giving us X amount, and the project is still just doing whatever it chooses is the technical direction. You don't get some, you're not sponsoring a feature by going to that thing. Like that's not how that works. So if we want something that is like, if people are asking, how do I sponsor a feature? Like we probably need docs that say like, this isn't it.
So I think
Right?
that thing doesn't even exist
Right.
for many years.
Right. Yeah.
So, okay. So the first thing I wanted to say is I don't think there is the misconception on by companies, okay, that spending money on funding the foundation sponsor the work of developers on Node. Simply put, because there is absolutely no queue of companies that wants to become members of the foundation. Okay, if that was the case, there's one. There is no absolutely. It's very hard to get the level of funding that we have, which is diminishing. Okay, and basically they're not helping. Like there's no. There's not much that is being given. The foundation has also 33 projects at this point in time. So it's also, and they does a bunch of things. Spends a lot of money on lawyers, unfortunately. This is it's a US system. But the generic part is the foundation as their members, and their members fund the foundation essentially to exist, all the copyright, pay the lawyers, organize a few things, do handle our social accounts and a bunch of other stuff. So this is a good chunk of it. Okay, if we want to, I don't think there's that misconception on funding Node via the foundation is not there, because nobody's funding Node. Okay, apart from each individual companies of the people that are in this room, and that they are contributing directly to the success of this project. Okay, to be honest, and a few of the members that are sponsoring the foundation keep existing, because without the foundation we will have problems in all our copyrights and trademarks and all the other things that are very important. So all of that, I want to make it absolutely clear. The role of the members is fantastic, but absolutely not enough to guarantee the self-sufficiency of the project. And there is no queue of companies that lining up to sponsor, to put money on the foundation. Having said that, there is a big lack of how do I get a bug fixed in Node? Okay, like if I have a bug fixed, if there is a bug in Node and I have that bug as a company, and I don't have the luxury of knowing one of the few individuals that are be able to work for money to fix it for you, okay? Because there are individuals that are doing that every day, and I'm aware of a few, yeah. And it's, unless you know those people, you are basically stuck and at the mercy of us. Like, and I am, to be honest, I'm even of the question of, is this polite or whatever if I say to an issue, look, if you want to have this fixed, very happily hire me, pay me this bunch of money to get this fixed, because I'm not going to fix it for you. So it's either you pay me or this is not happening. This is pretty much the situation. So I'm not, why the heck I need to give you production support for free? Sorry to, this is at least my point of view. The company, I was a consultant before, and I was fixing the bug of of the people that I was consulting with, and right now I'm doing it for the people using my product. So I'm not, but this is what I do. So sorry, it was for me, Joey. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Sorry. I just wanted to say there is no way to highlight that this is a possible way of doing things, and even though it's expensive, because a lot of those people that I know are charging very hefty hourly rates, but this is a different topic. Okay.
Well, so it's not really okay. So I want to clarify first. I think you mentioned this, the companies, member companies, or possible member companies don't have the misconception. I agree with that. That I think there is a whole class of people who just don't even know this stuff really exists, who we could be doing better outreach to. So I agree, as a member company, we have a fairly clear view, but we've also had people who sat on the board. So like we're, fairly unique there. There's a lot of companies who probably wouldn't even, you'd go around the company and you'd be like, hey, y'all are using Node. Like, do you know that there's a foundation? They might even just not even know that their foundation exists. So like we could be doing better outreach on what the foundation is there to do. And I think that was what my point with the funding part of that was. But I think the actual problem there is the decision makers are not the people reporting the bugs, right? So the person reporting the bugs almost never in the issue tracker has this checkbook, right? So what we need is a way for the person who's reporting the bug, because you can reply all you want and say, pay me. And they'd be like, I can't. I'm not that person, right? They're not the check signer. And we have no story for them to tell them, hey, take this packet, go to your CTO and say, I have this bug. The X other companies have individuals in that issue tracker saying they also have this bug. If we could just pitch in X amount of dollars and here's the packet, we could then get, a priority queue for a maintainer. Like, we don't have any story around that, right? And so, yeah, I agree that there's a gap, but the story cannot just be tell people in the issue, pay me to do it, because that's just the wrong people. We're talking to the wrong people there. We're messaging to the wrong people. Do you want to reply, or Jody, or you?
I agree with you. It's just that there's no, at this point in time, they're just idle and we're just having issues open and nobody's replying to them. Because that's a good chunk of our issue, why our issue tracker is so big. So, and it's the net result, half of those are production issues. And without access to production problems, to production, you can solve it. And there is no official support contract for Node that they can be used to fix this. So
I guess, it's like, could the project do something that would help? I mean, the problem is we might get in the middle of disagreements and stuff, but like we could have we just throwing out, possibilities. We could have a Linux crowdfunding account. And, basically it could be, if there is a bug you want fixed, you can contribute. And then if somebody actually demonstrates that they fixed that bug, we would end up saying, okay, we are going to pay out what that company contributed to the individual, right? Like that would provide a path, but whether we want to do that or not, I don't know.
So just some personal experience from, for example, the bug that I talked about in the morning, that kind of bugged a lot of companies, like big companies, for 2 years. Because you can see, like, in the issue tracker, like people with company emails complained about, I think if there is a way for them to like actually, because people, my impression is that people just do not know how you can get someone to fix this. There is no such channel. Like, I'm sure, like, if we put out, somehow let people know, like, there is a way for you to get this fixed, even if it requires you to go to your CTO about this. I'm sure, like, people may actually try to pitch that to someone else, but we have no, like, people kind of assume that there is some kind of Node team that is supposed to handle all this, and how the Node team is supposed to, like, how are people are supposed to be stepping up to do this? My impression is that people assume that there is this foundation that got paid by the foundation and they are supposed to do this. That's my impression about how people like outside of project space, think about how things work. Like just today, like yesterday, I was like replying to an issue about why there no lib node. Is the node team not willing to guarantee? Like there's like, what are you? What is this referring to? Like this is just needs some volunteer to step up. There's no such thing as like no team is going to make decisions about whether they want to do this or not. It's mostly like volunteering work. But like if you as a company, you do want this lib node to be good, to be because like companies do work like depend on this. If you do want like good support of a shared library, well then like it would be helpful to like provide some kind of link, some kind of information about how you can sponsor this, how you can actually get people to work on this. I don't think we have anything like that. People kind of just assume there's a node team. Well, there's the foundation. Well, the node team is already paid by the foundation, right? And things are going to happen by themselves, right? And that's my impression about how people feel about this. Also, like that's also how I think some people think how the requires and was supposed to happen and try to like make it very clear like it was my kind of my idea, and then I ask whether Bloomberg is willing to sponsor this, and they say yes, which I'm very grateful for. But like people generally just do not know how things work, how things are sponsored in Core, and I think we can do better about document. I don't know, like give some links, whatever. Try to help people like that things are not how you think it works.
So I totally agree with Joey. Like I think the generic conception is that Node.js is done by Santa. Okay, it's literally. Oh, we could do next. We could do one in December, and we do the Santa release. Okay, yeah, we do all. That will be a good one. Well, we do twice. Come on, we do two majors. I don't know. I'm joking. Santa comes 2 times a year. I don't know. Santa comes every week almost at this point. Only yeah. Look, it's so this is the first part. Okay, so yes, we need to absolutely change that communication. Like this is a big. This is a big problem right now on this front. Okay, and I think we should. I don't know how. Like try to change it and find a way on how to communicate correctly. This is the first one. Second, I have been pinged by a friend of mine. They do polar.sh. I don't know if you are familiar with Polar. It's it's a platform for essentially receiving funding for certain issues and certain things for maintainers. Okay, and they provide the admin side for the issue sponsorship, potential support or other things. Okay. And yeah, I don't know. I'm floating ideas. Okay, I'm not saying this is an option. Or anyway, there's a lot of options here. Just a lot of vendors that can be picked. And I think the Polar founder is trying to get it connected with LFX crowdfunding, so that we could potentially use the system if we wanted to. Anyway, I just wanted to float the possibility.
No, I'm a slightly different topic. So if you're replying, oh, okay. Well, then I think I beat you by raising my hand in the Zoom. Oh, we're out of. Oh, we are over time. No, mine's another topic. So it would. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Sure. Yeah. I have been talking a lot. I agree.
So I think it would be really helpful for potential sponsors if we could be really concrete about funding sources and in particular funding methods and in particular ways that they can get guaranteed results for their funding rather than just putting money into a bucket. That requires mentioning specific companies or individuals that people could work with, working modes that are concrete. And I know that that's tricky for the Node project, but I think it'll be really valuable if we can figure out a shared way to do that.
We're at time.
Yeah, sorry.
Like if you want to wrap. Like,
We have
I
a
talked too much already.
15-minute break, but we can also.
Hostess, want to go on break? Can go on break.
well, okay, yeah. So let's so let's wrap up that then. I think from the full discussion and everything, we agree on the ambassador program with maybe a bit more like broader scope than just content, but also including and working with the foundation to work and maybe improve on the training, certification, and everything like that. Would be the first part. Second point, everyone is now aware about the survey. So please feel free to jump on the pull request. It's on the next 10 repo. I think there is only 1 or 2 pull requests being open, so you won't have any issue to finding it that. And the last one is we will need a lot more discussion about the funding part.
Come to the next 10 meetings.
Yeah, so like Wes just said, you should all jump in the next 10 meeting and come discuss that with us.
Just a really quick one, it would also be nice to have it the other way. So if somebody wants to do something and they are looking for funding. So if I had a web page, that said, okay, I'm Wes, I want to implement Quick in Node.js, send me some money, I would approve from our funds, immediately, not maybe a lot of money, but $5,000, I'll send it to you. Just get it.
Yeah. Michael, we are breaking, just so you know.
Okay, thanks.
There is a tool.
And it is, I don't know what we're doing wrong. There are people with beautiful sponsor
Oh, okay. Can I do it from up here?
Yes, if you want to use that computer.
Yeah.
You can do, or like you can take your laptop. It's just like Zoom.
Do you have somebody escort you out?
Let me.
Okay, yeah. Oh, you're great.
Hello, just in case we are not clear, we are taking the 15-minute break to the remote participants. Mute. Dan,
Yeah, you can leave the other one there for now.
floor is yours.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So I wanted to talk about modules. So I have not been a member of the Node.js module working group. I don't know if anybody else here was, but Joey's blog post about require ESM with an amazing edition now available experimentally kind of raised the topic of, how much further could we get if there were more broadly distributed knowledge of, the CJS ESM transition and how that relates to the underlying standards. So I was hoping the guy would join us, but it's pretty early in Vancouver, so it's understandable if it didn't work out. So so I wanted to go over the background on the TC39 side, and then I'll kind of mention some things on the Node side. If others can chime in and with your context, that would be great. And then we could talk about, based on that, sort of the future-facing projects. Oh, Guy, I see you in the participants list. Are you there?
Hi.
Hello, glad you could join. So, basic concepts of ES6 modules. They're a lot more like AMD than CJS modules, except even with some different things, like imports and exports are they have names that are statically available, because I guess we wanted to do macros, and you couldn't do macros unless you had named imports and static resolution at the beginning of everything. But also it gives programs a nice structure. Also, the imports are hoisted and always statically visible. Again, kind of like AMD. All modules load before the first one starts. So it's not like you have require in the middle. You do have dynamic import, but that's a bit different in how it's used. And in practice, ESM modules are often or usually run based on, converting them to CJS or AMD or something similar. So Guy, do you want to talk about basic ESM semantics in Node?
Sure, I can give it a go. The basic ESM semantics in Node.js, I guess, came out of the trying to. I mean, there's a long history there. I don't know how much you want me to go into the history of it, Dan, or discuss.
So we have 45 minutes left. I don't know. Let's focus on just describing what there is. I think it's suffice it to say that it took a long time of debating and prototyping to conclude. Things were very contentious. The people who were involved in the contentious discussions, most of them aren't here, and so this is a room of people who are not like battling. Oh, maybe guys.
Sure,
guys
I could try and share some of the
battle. So I think that's as much as we need to go into for history, unless there was something else that was like relevant for understanding where we are now. Like
there's a few important invariants which guided the design, and it's worth
that would be
remembering
good to discuss.
So originally in the development of ES modules, there was always this design goal of having interoperability with CommonJS. So in the early sort of strawman designs for ES modules had this concept of loaders in the TC39 spec itself, which would be able to handle a CommonJS interop. And very clearly, very early, that was identified as something that should be solved. And the original specification for ES modules nearly got somewhat derailed in the details of figuring out these sort of user land loaders that would hook into the ES module system to support CommonJS require alongside ES modules, where the goal was always for require to be able to require ES modules and ES modules to be able to import require. That kind of got removed at the sort of end stage of ES 2015, this entire loader system, to just do a simple to cut loaders out entirely and just have ES module semantics. And then that kind of pushed the whole problem of CJS interop into userland. And for userland loaders, or effectively Node.js's CommonJS implementation being a userland modules implementation integrating into the ES module loader. And we had a few constraints in the design process that were kind of agreed upon. And one of the strong constraints was that the execution order in the ES module loader between ES modules and CommonJS should be exactly the same. So when you have import A and import B, and A is an ES module and B is a CommonJS module, you want to make sure that the execution of those modules happens when they're executed, not when you're analyzing the module graph. And so there's this natural difference between CommonJS and ES modules where you don't know the CommonJS dependencies until you've kind of read through them, unless you have some kind of lossy static analysis over the CJS.
Sorry, Guy, I think this is going to be a little difficult to follow given the lack of slides. Maybe we should keep going. Or
sure, I was just trying to share an important invariant
yeah,
from the
but everyone's just
perspective
typing
of
up their laptop,
that.
like, not looking.
Yeah, sure. If you want to go ahead, feel free to.
I mean, what would be interesting for you, audience? I don't think people like paying attention.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm very interested to hear what folks are interested in and how it can. I think that there are a lot of things that are top of mind for folks today that would be great to get to in today's discussion, and to make sure we leave adequate time for that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I'll just add, like, at some of the past collaborators, what was really useful was to like identify some of the like top of mind issues and then try and discuss like what's the path forward for those. You know,
Okay,
if there's still
I can skip
major
forward.
gaps in the implementation, like identifying those and understanding, like, you know, are they just going to be closed because people are already working on them, or are they going to they're a gap that we don't know how we're going to close, right?
Yeah.
So I have these towards the end. Maybe I could go really quickly through the background. So we've yep, JD.
Yeah, let's get to the sort of the topical discussion and make sure we have time to have it properly. I think that would be great.
Just quick point of order. How many people in this room are familiar with ESM? Then I guess we can skip the intro.
No, but we are.
I mean, if we already know.
Yeah. Okay. So what has happened since ES6? We got a bunch of new features, including top level await, JSON modules with this with type JSON, import maps. Web bundles was this idea where we would have a package that would have multiple types. It would have been interesting in Node, but that seems to have stalled in standards. And we got a bunch of new features on the Node side. And the ecosystem transition remains slow and painful. So in TC39 in the near future, one thing that I'm really excited about is this thing called import defer, which makes it so that loading a module can, I mean, it basically takes over some of the use cases of delaying require into like a conditional block, because it makes it so that it could be synchronous while also kind of working with ESM. Also, we might get inline modules, module expressions and declarations. Loaders have been, yeah. Oh, Joey, could you get the microphone that's in the cabinet?
It's on. So how is import defer different from just a dynamic import?
Okay, the way that it works is that sort of theoretically, the whole module is like has its source text loaded eagerly. And then if it has any top level awaits sort of as nested dependencies, those are also run eagerly during the initial module load. But any like non top level await stuff, anything that just has to execute, that is deferred until you actually access one of the exports. So it can only be used with like star imports, because then you have a property access that triggers forcing the module. So Nicolo Ribaldo from Joey's coworker is working on this, and actually right now working on developing benchmarks. If you want to be involved in that effort, we really want to make sure that it works well for Node. Westview.
I assume that the opportunity to have what looked like an import time crash cause a production runtime crash at some arbitrary time in the future has been talked about, correct?
Import defer does not introduce crashes. It doesn't introduce cases where it fails.
The
Oh, you mean
code
it
could crash and it hasn't been. I'm a little confused on.
Oh,
or
okay.
am I-
So it makes it so that the running the code happens later. So it's just like any getter.
Yeah, that's the crash. That's the
Right.
crash I'm worried about. Like, what if
Okay,
it
cool.
throws?
But you opt into it by writing import defer at the particular import site. And
but I'm a platform operator, so I'm now going to have my teams be writing code that is going to use this brand new feature that is going to look like. Do we have education in place? Like, we need education in place. This sounds like a time bomb to me.
okay, that's very interesting. That's very interesting, and I like have trouble agreeing. Let's follow up about this later, because I want to understand better. Maybe you could pass.
Implementation can be thought a lot like putting a common JS require inside of a nested function. It very much mirrors that behavior, which would also crash if the require wasn't executing when you do something lazily. So it's a very similar design.
From an end user point of view who had not looked too much into the module proposal, is there any opportunity there to help with mocks, like mocking ESM story right now?
It would be great if somebody began to look into that. At this point, there's no TC39 side effort that I'm aware of that works on that. What? Oh, the question was about mocking, about, in particular, if you want during a test to replace one module with another, but that I don't think import maps really solve that thoroughly. So this is a very good question.
Insight. So at least within the modules ESM team and stuff, we've talked about this many times. So you can do things in sort of a very clever but also hacky way. But the main reason that it doesn't properly work right now is because there's no way to literally replace a module and to unload it from the V8 side. They don't expose that, and so that's why we don't have.
I think there's a lot of testing that you could do without unloading modules.
Well, yeah, that's what I was talking about with the clever, but a little bit hacky.
So why don't we go through the slides, and then we could figure out which of various topics to dig into. Because, personally, I wouldn't mind spending the whole time talking about import defer. I'm really excited about it. But I just wanted to mention inline modules and inline modules, I think, is coming somewhat soon. I'm pretty optimistic about it. Import defer is happening somewhat soon. Inline modules might happen in the midterm. The loader and compartment API seems to be taking a lot longer. I don't see that happening soon. So we should not make plans in Node.js that really depend on it. That's my personal opinion. So near-term things happening in Node.js. One, we have our require ESM. That's awesome. Thank you, Joey. And Jeffrey suggested these two issues be something that we could discuss here. Proposal for a simple universal, so like a require hook that's nicer in ESM, making the async module loader hooks work faster. Joey, you were suggesting to me that we discuss synchronous simple ESM hooks, that those could maybe be a much more practical way to get, observability for ESM, which is really a requirement for a lot of people to adopt native ESM. Sorry, I'm misquoting you.
Just a quick note, that was the intent was to replace require monkey patching of module, CJS module loader, because that's very widespread.
Right, exactly. So this second bullet, the proposal for a simple thing, if we can make that work on ESM in addition to CJS, that could be really helpful for the adoption of ESM. And so we wouldn't have any monkey path. I mean, it is still to replace one module with another, right? Isn't it?
So one of the thing is that there is some popular packages that people are using to like, because for a very long time, for more than 10 years, this is like overdue for 10 years. There's no way to properly monkey patch, properly customize the CJS loading. So people just monkey patch it. And because they also like multiple projects monkey patch it, for example, Istanbul and Babel. So they and they kind of step on each other's toes. So they have this common package, for example, called Parrot. There are others, but this is the most popular. That gets like 23 million downloads per week. That monkey patch to provide some kind of hooks. And if you break this monkey patching, you break everyone. That depends on like the 23 million downloads per week. So to kind of like fix this problem, one idea is to have some kind of hook that you can just drop in to replace monkey patching. And then we try to upgrade, try to convince people to upgrade, or it's in progress to upgrade pirates so that they can just seamlessly upgrade if they detect that, for example, module.add hooks exist, then I use this instead of monkey patching, so that everyone who depends on this package can get a graceful upgrade in newer version of Node.js without having to do a single major change all the way through down their dependency chain. That's not going to work because, for example, for Istanbul, it's a testing thing. It's a testing. Like you don't upgrade your testing framework. You don't upgrade all the way down. So if you can just like have a similar patch release, very deep down the dependency tree, you can just make it work.
So on the queue, we have Matteo, then Steven, then Ruben. And do you need to add yourself to the queue also? Okay.
So I want to talk about the first thing, okay? The replacing the synchronous, allowing a way to synchronously monkey patch ESM and CJS, all the things. So there are two current issues on so the current loader system was designed for solving two different problems. One is this monkey patching, okay, especially for APMs, but also module, but also the mocking, okay. It's used for those two things, which can be implemented synchronously, okay. However, it will also build to support loading code from remote location and potentially do asynchronous work, okay? And this is the reason because it's also a separate thread and so on and so forth, because then it can use asynchronous stuff while blocking the main thread, okay? So it can do asynchronous work while blocking the main thread. This is like, I don't think one excludes the other. They are complementary, okay? They are orthogonal, okay? So it's an addition to our current system, not necessarily a replacement to our current system, because our current system fulfills some needs. Are those needs important enough to stay in core? Can we move it out to a separate mod? These are interesting questions, but this is the first bit of decision making by saying if an API is synchronous, this is synchronous. Okay, there's no way to do asynchronous work unless we move the problem of having an off-thread worker to the end user with all the problems that this entails. So again, this is the discussion. That's the important part to be aware of. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to.
Now to Steven.
Yeah.
Hello. So I have piles and piles of context around this subject. So loaders, well, it's worth saying that as an APM vendor, like what we actually care about is patching runtime things, we don't actually care about loading having happened at all. We care about this source text has converted to code already, and now we want to patch the thing.
Yeah,
So attaching this to loaders at all was kind of a mistake for this use case. Like loaders is good for like TypeScript transpiling and like things like that. Maybe
It's not good for that.
like it's more suitable than what we're trying to do. But yeah, so in the APM space, there's two different modules. There's one called require in the middle, which is what we used for patching require-based things for basically ever. It had a particular pattern of when you call the require, it basically intercepts this call and gives you the module object, and you can make whatever mutations to like the actual runtime objects and then return the like new state. This is not possible with ESM because ESM is immutable. So we do horrible, unspeakable things to sort of pretend that it can do that. So basically, what import in the middle actually does is every single module ever, we replace that module with another one that imports the original one and write a new custom module that for every export of the original module, we make a setter that we like a setter function that we basically hand over to a secret thing in the background that allows us to overwrite inside of this like shim module, saying instead of this export pointing to the actual module, let's point it to this new function I made. Basically to hack immutability on top of a thing that's not mutable.
So if I can jump in to understand the problem, why can't you set all this stuff up before anybody starts? Like, why do you have to be mutating it later after it's already loaded?
So
I understand that you have to wrap the module, but why can't you just do that at the beginning and then all references to the module are pointing to your wrapper? Why do you then have that last step of replacing each of the imports?
So we have to do this because we are applying patches to like actual runtime things.
Yeah.
So we do this like rewriting thing so that we can register this setter so that this all happens in the loader thread. The loader then goes back to the main thread to actually run the thing. And so in the main thread, that's where all our patches need to be applied.
I think he's saying like, could you do it at build time, for example?
Well, I don't mean build time. I mean like startup time, but like the beginning of startup time. So you are wrapping the module and you're redirecting the one to the other one.
Yeah, so we specify all the patches at the startup of the process, but we can't apply them in the loader. We have to apply them after the loader's done. But we have to actually create all the linkage to be able to make things immutable while it's in the loader, because when it comes out the other side, it's immutable.
Okay, that sounds like a deficiency in the loader API that doesn't actually require any mutability later. It sounds like that could be solved by just making sure that you have a way to, at startup, declare this is being wrapped by this. Import maps give you that, just not in a way that ends up being workable, I guess.
So module records exports are immutable by the spec. So
yeah, but you make sure that the import refers instead to this other thing. Can you explain?
What if the author is doing a test and they need? I'm not gonna.
Maybe there's some other place that we could talk and you could walk me through why you can't do something that doesn't require mutating things later.
It's basically the API that Chrome gives us. Like we have the like get namespace thing that gives us an object that's all the exports on it are immutable. I've looked at it and the spec says you're supposed to do that.
Yes, of course. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what the when somebody tries to import a module, the loader should be directing them to you, and then you give them the wrapper on the underlying thing. That doesn't require any mutation. Maybe someone can
maybe I can explain this better. So if you import a source text module, so then you cannot actually direct. You can give it to them, but they will need to evaluate the source text module first to get the original value. And they will do something with the value instead of operating. What they're currently doing is trying to wrap the source code, and that's kind of hacky. What they want is the actual value exported on the namespace project object.
Yeah, so we receive modules. So like say we load Express or something like that. Like we don't know that Express is being loaded until the load happens, and then when it happens, we get back this Express module, and even at that point, we don't actually know which version of Express it is. We have to then go and look at like what is the shape of this. We have to go look through it and like check. Does it have these functions? Does it have these? Does it have these
I'm pretty
things?
sure that that is
Yes, what
solvable
version it
without
is.
mutating a thing that already exists. But maybe we should talk about it afterwards because there's other people.
Quick explanation. What the idea throwing around in that thread was to add a synthetic module facade that wraps around the source tag module. That's one of the things
Yeah,
that we
that's what
talked about. Yes, yes. So next one.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So would be really cool if we could look into that more. So now we have Ruben on the queue.
I'm a little bit fearful of the synchronous part for require, and because when I worked on require, first of all, it's very performance sensitive to have like a fast startup time, and second, like any super minor change to that API, because it is so strongly monkey patched, as Andrew was saying, will break all of Node.js usage. And I don't believe adding the new API will bring all the current users to change that. So like it will take like even 10 years, you know, that's a very, very difficult situation. And the code itself in the require part is looking horrible. And I mean, horrible. And like adding even more complexity there is also not going to be ideal. I'm a little bit like I like the idea of doing that, but I'm skeptical if the benefit of it really exists all that much.
That's very. I have a lot of trouble understanding this negativity. This seems like a very exciting.
Yeah, but then look at the code and seeing like how things break.
Oh yeah, sure. Go.
So the first goal is to replace Pirate because that gets $20 million down, 20 million dollars per week. And from what I can tell, it's not that hard to replace, to give something that's not monkey patched, to like allow pirates to migrate in a single patch. That's the selling point. Allow them to migrate in a single patch. Everyone, depending on pirate, gets the upgrade in a single patch, which means usually they don't need to care about this because no one like people's package.json allows this. So all of them get an upgrade on your version of Node. And in the long term, we try to upgrade the top modules in the NPM ecosystem. They're the things that we really care about to not break. We try to get them upgraded with the new hook. And after, I don't know, with some measures, we detect that most of the ecosystem have migrated, we emit a warning. That's like what this thing is about. It's just trying to be as simple patch as possible. So I understand that there are a few libraries out there that are very frequently used, but the problem there is also like detecting the require monkey patching that is outside of that module. It's actually a little bit tricky and to find that just by looking, like we had originally is something to look through modules that would do specific things, but like I don't know how to even find other breakage changes all that well next to system and so on.
Yeah. So I think it would be a lot more respectful to focus on we have this requirement rather than say this is going to be impossible. So I think articulating the requirement, we have to not break code and we have to not make things slower is good. Let's go on to Wes or whoever. Yeah.
Yeah, it was me. So yeah, we are of course on board with that. One of, as Ruben just pointed out, like one of the reasons it hasn't happened yet is the sort of the nature of the beast with monkey patching. We don't know what they're doing. So like it's very difficult to protect someone doing something they were not really supposed to do in the first place from like an indetectable thing. Oh, yes, I know. Like they had no other choice. We're trying to like provide like a proper way to do it. But aside from like me looking through, or someone else on the modules team looking through like literally every package that exists and checking to see if it is monkey patching something and what is it doing. Like as you mentioned, the CJS code could be a little bit better. Like I'm not personally that familiar with the CJS code, so even if I looked at the monkey patching that they're doing, I wouldn't necessarily be able to figure out what it's doing.
Right. So we are all agreed. It is a requirement that any change made in this area be backwards compatible to existing monkey patching usage. That is like literally what Joey already said at the beginning. Stan? Yeah. Why do we keep saying no, it's impossible? You have to do what you just said.
I think we're repeating the require yes and it's not possible thing.
So yeah, exactly.
It's impossible until someone figure out how to.
Yeah, let's focus on articulating requirements. We know that there's a requirement. The existing way of monkey patching continues to work. Is that what
Well,
you're
I
saying?
don't.
Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't think that's what. I mean, she's proposing replacing the existing way of monkey patching with like like that's an unofficial API that we've never documented or supported. This would be an actual official API that provides the same functionality that then could be like supported going forward.
Well, Ruben finds something. Wait, what was? Oh, so the idea is more like you have something that people can use publicly, like that's like kind of documented, and as maintainer, we know what to avoid when we refactor. I think that's the most important thing for us, because right now you do not dare to touch anything like module.underscore or module.prototype underscore, because you don't know who you are going to break when you touch this. And the hooks is about setting up some boundaries that you know you cannot break, but other than that, you can break and you can refactor. I think that's the most important bit. But yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Have you found?
We actually have a way to monkey patch things officially in our documentation since version 0.30. And that is required.cache, and we official. I know it's one part, I know, but that's an official way as well, like on top.
That's not enough for, like, how are you supposed to create a module in there? Like, that's not part of the thing. And I don't think, for example, I don't think the userland monkey patching are actually using it. That's not enough for what they need.
Okay, great. So we have 12 minutes left in this session, and we have Guy as well as Nicolo on the call. Do either of you have things to share about this, about the general area or about this topic? Guy, Nicolo?
I think this is a really interesting topic. And so I wouldn't want to cut short the discussion time on this. There are lots of proposals for modules at CC39, which Node has a say on and are interesting to Node, like defer, like inline modules, like source phase imports and things like that. But perhaps this discussion, I think, is more important today and more relevant to have today.
I think this has been good, but also I'm not sure if the 10 minutes will be decisive. I was wondering if maybe Nicolo could give a quick introduction to import defer and oh yeah, Jeffrey Booth, you haven't talked yet. Why don't you say something?
I just wanted to say something quick. If you could go back to the slide with the 2 PRs. It's been fantastic having Joey contribute to the module stuff lately. We could really use help. Like there's been a lot less, I wouldn't say it's stopped, but it's like definitely slowed tremendously in the last year or two. People who work on modules and do PRs against module stuff. And so if you're wondering why the hooks stuff has taken so long and why some of these other things that have been proposed a long time ago are only just now or we're still talking about them, it's because we need contributors. So if you're interested in these topics, we could use the help. Like that bug there has been open for, I don't know, 6 months or more. It just needs someone to be able to figure it out and fix it. There's a lot of things like that where it's not controversial. We just need someone to help. So.
Yeah, and remember, Node has a long history of scaring away contributors by saying no to everything, and we should try to avoid that. Sorry.
Strong agree there. So I had a question. Could you go back? Sorry to ask you to go back to the other slide after going back. Anyway, yeah, this. So as a user, I do not care about any of this, and I only care about being able to replace modules for my test setup. Why is TC39 not fixing that, and they're spending time on this?
So I think improving loading performance is important, and that's what import defers about. Maybe if we have time, we could go into discussion about that. Improving testing is important. I would love to work with you on that. And Jacob wrote me to say that he would be interested in working together. So let's get together and work on this.
Is it strictly a lack of people signing up to do the work? That's kind of what I was asking. So
Yes.
people are signing up to do this work, yet not the thing that all the users are asking about.
Yeah.
So I just feel like there's some disconnect here, and I just want to figure out if
Yes,
that's
it is-
people showing up.
There
then
is a
that's-
lot of work to do for modules. I regret that this slide omits import source. Maybe we could go over we could go over these three, or we could brainstorm how to solve that mocking for test thing, which I agree it's very important. Everybody has to invent their own terrible things. Like I'm personally working on a project now where we had to invent a terrible thing for that. Yeah.
Great. That's all I really want to know is that. So next step is
so-
module working group. Let's all show up there and let's
Yes,
figure out
we
something we
have-
can take. Just TC39.
We have a meeting, the ES module harmony working group, the TC39. It's going to meet immediately after this. If you want to skip the standard session that we're going to have.
Standard session is competing with the standards
It is.
for time.
we could do this in 2 weeks. Yeah. So Nicolo is a very productive member of that group. Do you want to talk?
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to join that meeting, like we are happy to have guests. We can coordinate on the GitHub issue for this session, like to figure out when we can get TC9 folks and not folks to talk together about this, like about what testing needs for modules specifically. Yeah, and the reason I had my hand raised is because, yeah, as Dan mentioned, I've been working on this import defer proposal, and while working on that, we found that while ES modules have designed to be in theory synchronously runnable, there are many like rough edges because in practice ESM was never loaded and run synchronously so far, and so we're finding some problems through import defer, and I assume you will find some problems through require ESM, and so it would be great to like make sure to share feedback in both directions to so that when somebody finds some potential problem with running ESM synchronously, we can like avoid the same happening in the other place.
To be clear, the problem we found so far was theoretical, right? That there was
well,
spec that we
like
can slightly
right,
generate.
like the problem we found so far was like with reentrancy. So like if I have cycles where one of the edges in the cycle is a sync evaluation, because like this, so the spec has some assertions that actually prevent like synchronously running ESM inside of other code, but like in practice, the assertions don't really are needed for some more specific for some more specific properties of the language, and so we're like figuring out how much of the assertions we can get away with and what's actually needed to like understand our boundaries.
Is there anything that extends beyond assertions? Like, is there anything that actually would require changes in V8?
Well, by violating those assertions, you invalidate how some algorithms work.
Okay, but is the implementation in V8 suitable or?
Yeah, well, like when you violate the assertion, V8 in the debug mode currently just crashes in some cases.
Okay, that's good to know.
And so like we have to figure out exactly how much of the assertion we can violate and how much of the assertion we can respect.
Okay, great. I also want to briefly mention about the testing thing. There's been a lot of hopes and dreams put on the loader API, the loader compartments API, and I think because that sort of inherently relates to resolving the import specifiers, people might have been lumping that in with, oh, we'll solve that with the loader. But if you can remember a lot, we've we've had to be unpacking that in a lot of ways over the years. So I think that's probably one reason why we haven't gotten to it. And it takes this initiative from somebody to say, hey, come on, you keep not doing the loader. When are you gonna give us a solution for this? Nicolo, do you think in the last 4 minutes you could walk us through import defer, because it's clearly of interest to the group from before?
Yes, I can. Can you maybe share the readme of the proposal?
Yeah.
Thank you.
What?
I think it's import the third evaluation, or just Google for it. Or the fair import eval.
Right.
Okay, yeah, so maybe scroll down to the first actual example. Yeah, I guess. Okay, yeah, the readme is not as good as I was hoping for. But so there is this problem when it comes to optimizing performance of large apps. That is that startup time is can be like huge, and a significant part of the time spent during startup, we found that spent for code that's not actually need that startup. Like my experience with this is like, I guess the examples I have are mostly from front end, but like imagine having some sort of app that has a bunch of components, and many of these components are only needed when the user actually starts interacting with it. So you don't really want the whole app to like wait being ready until when all of those modules have been evaluated. Or another example I have is like I'm one of the Babel maintainers, and in Babel we have this concept of presets. A preset is a set of plugins that do different transforms. And the most popular preset lets you say, okay, I want to support these browsers and these platforms, only load the plugins needed for that. And so we don't need to load all the possible plugins, because that depends on which browsers, which platforms the user wants to support. But we still need to, when using SM, we still need to preload everything, even if we're not actually going to use it, because we cannot load it later unless we start introducing asynchronous code. And in CommonJS, this is very easily solved. You just move the required calls from the top of your CommonJS module to inside the function we're actually going to use that. For ESM, it's not that easy, because ESM has been designed to not force module loading to be synchronous. This is because it's also used in the browser, and in the browser you don't really want to block while loading modules, and that's why dynamic import uses is asynchronous. And so we tried to figure out how much we need to actually do ahead of time to still be able to save some initial cost and being able to defer these initial costs to when it's actually needed later synchronously. And so what the divider between what needs to be done at the beginning and later is like, you need to still preload everything. There are some modules that are synced using tuple await, so you also need to execute those eagerly. But then you can defer the most of the actual ESM execution to later. Dan, what were you saying?
So I think Nicolo is being very conservative in outlining the potential benefits of this. We really hope that in the node context, import defer can really recover the same level of performance as you get from require in a branch. And there are various possible ways that we could achieve this. The basic thing is the only, because Node can do synchronous file IO potentially during a loading an ESM module with this new path, what it could do is only actually read the file when you access one of the exports of import defer. There are some edge cases, like in particular this like potential nested top level await thing, or something like that, or in theory syntax errors get reported eagerly. But we could potentially solve those either by some sort of code caching mechanism, or by putting some information, caching some information in package JSON. So I think it would be really interesting to think through the details of how we could deploy import defer in Node.js to make the best possible performance.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and like the way this proposal works in practice is that you use namespace imports to load modules, and then execution happens only when you access one property from the namespace.
Oh yeah, see this slide. Import defer with locally available pre-analyzed modules. So it removes the need for eager loading. And this comes up both with, like bundled Webpack builds and with Node.js, we hope. So because this is going for approval in TC39 soon, actually next week we're proposing it. Because this is going for approval next week in TC39 for stage 2.7, which is sort of like stage 3 was until 5 minutes ago. 2.7 means we're kind of settled on the design, but we don't really want to declare it complete until we get to stage, until we have tests. We want to require everybody to really have tests, really make sure that everything is set. So that we're asking for the stability from the committee as a basis to work on those tests. It would be great to have feedback from Node on this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but it's running over to my next session. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. I guess we can go into Winter CG. Oliver, do you want to come up? Oh wait. What's the point? Sorry. Do you want to be presenting in the beginning, or should I?
You know more about QC.
Okay, well, I think we can pass it back and forth to the audience. Okay, so Oliver and I wanted to talk about standards and Node. So, I work on GC39, and we have a bunch of things coming. Async context, which should be like async local storage, but faster. It would be really good to continue to work with Node collaborators on making sure we have the details of async context right. I've heard some from Matteo and Stephen, and more input is better. Temporal, the long-awaited datetime library, almost here. Using is now we have symbol.dispose, which is, it's like the Python with statement, or it's like C++ RAII, lets you dispose at the end of the scope. Iterator methods, now you can do a map over an iterator. Shadow Realm is this sort of delayed proposal for isolation of JavaScript. It's kind of like Realms, like with the VM module, but it forces this strong isolation mechanism where you can't pass objects directly in and out. You can just sort of pass simpler things, and that makes it less risky to try to build an isolation mechanism off of it. When people have tried to, people kind of assume that if you make a context with the VM module, then it's isolated, but it just isn't. So this is erring on the side of safety. We also have decorators at stage 3. Hopefully they'll be implemented by V8 any year now. And then more speculatively, I'm working on a signals proposal. Maybe some type grammar could be included in JavaScript, which could make TS node not as necessary. But this is we really don't know whether this will happen. And records or tuples, these immutable and compared by value data structures. So yeah, of these, I think it's I wanted to note the Shadow Realm that was kind of shipping in Node at some point, or briefly, or almost, and it turned out it couldn't be shipped because we're not sure which interfaces, which APIs should be exposed on the global object of Shadow Realm, and there's ongoing investigation to that. Async context, I think, is the most urgent one to get strong Node input. But it's still at stage 2. We haven't worked out the website yet, 100%.
Who here has heard of WinterCG? Cool. So I guess it's a standards body to standardize server-side JS runtimes and the APIs they use. The main example is the minimum common API, which has a bunch of web APIs, which most people forget are from the web, like console or performance. And usually, well, I mean, before WinterCG, these were never standardized for which APIs the JS runtime should include. But this proposal, I don't know if I can open it. The proposal just goes through and says which APIs should be included.
This is not a formal spec yet.
Yeah, it's not a specification. It's more of a, I guess, recommendation, community report.
This is not yet formalized. We have ongoing work to make this more solid. So this is an outline of what it will be.
Yeah, and I guess that was the starting point of starting WinterCG, of getting everyone to agree at least on some things, because it's a lot easier to basically copy existing web APIs than make your own from scratch. And they're already implemented basically everywhere in most JS runtimes.
It's not about it being easier. It's like better also.
Yeah.
So you want to go back to this, or do you want to?
Yeah. Import.meta is also a good example of it feels like it should be standardized, but it isn't. I think there's URL main, loads of different stuff, which is, I forgot what Node support is like, but I think it supports some, but not all. I might be wrong.
Sure. I mean, I think Node supports more than what. Anyway, just.
Oh, that makes sense. I guess the rest is mostly like implementation details. Like
runtime keys is kind of noteworthy because that's about identifying in the package JSON which runtime you are. And this can be used for conditional loading. Sorry, is somebody put their hand up? Mateo? Oh, perfect.
Okay, thank you. There is one thing, it's about the API. The other bit is about the behavior of those API, especially Node Core console is funky. This is a...
Right, so minimum common API, both, once we fully formalize it, it should both say which APIs are needed and whether there are modifications to those APIs and how those work. So runtime, so fetch in particular is not going to work the same way in any server environment as it does in the browser. There are several reasons why it doesn't make sense. And so we've been working on writing those down into a specification, which hopefully one day we can make as part of the official fetch spec, or we maintain it as a fork. We'll see what happens. Does that clarify what you're getting at? Did you have anything more to say? So going to the future, Oliver has sorry.
Did you have a question?
What happens, for example, if the WinterCG standardize something that we can't implement, like because we can't break ecosystem, like console, because they're just not compatible between Dino, Bun, and Node?
Good thing Node.js collaborators are already participating in WinterCG and making sure that we're focusing on the stuff that can be eventually compatibly implemented. So I think the Node project should broaden its participation in WinterCG, and that would both help us get there's just a lot of work to do, and make sure that we're especially rigorous in preventing these compatibility issues. But James Snell and Ethan Arrowwood are, deeply involved in WinterCG.
Yeah, there was some discussion of whether we should just take Node's existing API and standardize that instead of making new interfaces ourselves. But we've basically decided no.
So,
sorry.
Wait, I mean,
so far.
Yeah, I think there's still a possibility of a separate project of everybody's making this thing of being Node compatible, and maybe we could define that someday. But most people are not interested in that. The people who do the work are not interested in that. So we're going to the future. We're going to standardize, formally standardize in ECMA. We're forming our Winter TC, the new ECMA technical committee. And Cloudflare is proposing the socket API. Oliver is proposing this console API. Sorry, the CLI API.
Yeah. So it's essentially a cross runtime way of doing CLI operations, mostly arguments and environment variables, kind of like process, but subtly different. Like, for example, the arguments doesn't include the binary path or the script path, mostly just to ease the processing of it.
Okay. So let's go to Luca and then Michael and
Yeah, I wanted to respond real quick to the comment earlier about what if we standardize something that is Node incompatible? And I really want to make sure that this does not happen. And I think part of the problem here is the misconception that some people have, that is that there's standards and then there's implementers. And the standards people say something, then the implementers have to implement it. But really, that's not how we want WinterCG to work. WinterCG is a group of implementers. And when we decide to standardize something, we talk with all the implementers, right? There's no higher level group of people that are like, hey, we want to standardize this thing. And we know that one of the implementers hates it, but we're going to do it anyway. We're going to force them. That's not how this works or how we want it to work. But rather it's really a collaboration. So if there's something that turns out is not possible because of some reason, then that is a constraint that the entire group has to sort of figure out what to do with. And the answer there is never oh, well, we're going to do it anyway, but we'll figure it out. And yeah.
Mike.
Yeah, I wanted to just talk a little bit at the same thing. To date, I don't think there's been any formal agreement that Node is going to implement WinterCG or anything like that. It's based like everything else. Volunteers, if they're interested in implementing those APIs, it'll happen. If not, it may not happen. And I think my take at least would be today, it's probably more important to some of the other projects that Node implement those than it is to Node. So there's going to be a motivation to help make that happen.
Well, it's important to Node users like Bloomberg that we implement WinterCG. I don't know how you define what's important to Node.
I'm it's if my point I think is if a spec is made such that Node can't implement it, then that may be important to the users, but there's nothing we can do because we can't break the world, and that is more likely to affect usage of that API in the other runtimes than usage of Node. But just my opinion. I'm just trying to say there should be motivation to help make those implementations happen and to avoid the cases where it's not implementable.
Yeah. So the most important thing is to bring the technical input. If people here know about why something won't be compatible, just bring that information to WinterCG, and then we can make sure that that is respected and that we don't specify something that's impossible.
Yeah, and it's really important that this happens ideally not in the last 10 minutes, right? But this feedback comes early and frequently, so that we can incorporate it in early design discussions, and not once everybody has shipped it. One of the implementers says, "Oh, actually, this doesn't work." And if this does happen for whatever reason, obviously we'll figure it out anyway. But it's just much faster to do things not that way.
Yeah,
I
please
think,
also bring
like-
feedback in the last 10 minutes and post publishing a specification. Don't. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I know I've expressed the same things in past discussions. Like, I think, at least my understanding is there's people who are paid in some of these, some of the runtimes to participate in Winter CG and to move things forward. The call to the Node community to say, please tell us things before it's too late. It's like, you know, there aren't people that I know who are paid to make that happen in the Node community, except for maybe, you know, we do have some collaborators who are involved, but like the best way is to make sure that the people who are who have some support or funding to be involved in Winter CG try and pull that information out of the Node collaborators versus hoping that it happens from the people who like they that's just not their day job to make that happen, right?
There are definitely multiple people whose jobs are around Node and include participation in Winter CG.
Right. So I'm saying like it's like
So
reach out to them
it's
to
not
try
a
and
thing of, you know, the big VC money from Dino is pushing this on the backs of unfunded Node collaborators who don't have any jobs. Like both people have jobs.
just saying that then like it's reach out to those people versus the hey, please don't show up at the last minute. It's like
mean,
those
so-
people can pull that feedback out, right?
It's I mean, Bloomberg is paying for Node collaborators to be involved in this. Like, other people should also fund Node. I'm sorry.
It's fine. Fine. I don't. I'm not like I'm just. All I hear was like, please don't show up at the last minute. I'm just saying the best way to avoid that is to invest some time to try and like get that input.
Yes,
And if
that's
you're already
literally
doing
what
that,
we're trying
great.
to do right now with this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is great, and but this is why I just want to make sure this conversation continues to happen, because I think, and it, you said there are people who are there from Node. There is, but do any of those people work on parsargs? No, you got a CLI API on the thing, and where's the people who are in parsargs? They're not in Winter CG. So you can't say you have people from Node because Node is a distributed product, right?
Yes, exactly. That is
So
exactly.
you need to go to find the people who have parsargs experience, and you need to reach out to them directly,
I
not
was mostly
this
objecting
room.
to Michael characterizing it and the difference between Dino and the other things.
Right, true. And I think it's important, but I just want to make sure that we're aware that this
Yes,
is not just a blanket, there is one person there, and so thus Node is support or is present. That is not how the Node project works, right? So we just need to make sure we have a really clear scope when you say there are people who are paid to work on Node, those people are paid to work on HTTP or something else,
I
right?
completely agree. We need more participation. This is literally why I'm here. I was only objecting to Michael characterizing it as like people working on non-node environments are paid, as if that makes it illegitimate.
It
That was-
doesn't
that
make
was
it
very-
illegitimate. It makes the interaction possible. Right. That's the point. It is perfectly legitimate. And if anybody
Yeah,
wants to sign up to pay Node contributors who work on parsargs to come contribute the CLRs, that would be beautiful. Awesome. Love it. But that's not happening. So the reality is that it's more complicated. That's all I'm saying.
Good.
So somebody should come pay people who work on parsargs to go to the CLI portion of the Winter CG group. And until that happens, I think that it is reasonable to ask Winter CG to hound for feedback
So this is
those people.
Yeah, this comes up towards the end, the Node.js standards position repo. I would like to actively work on soliciting feedback from Node.js collaborators, not just about Winter CG things, but about standards more broadly. Sorry, Oliver, go before.
Just to
yeah.
say, I did consult Node and Dino and Bun in my CLI proposal. Specifically, I think I got feedback from the person who made process.parsargs, like specifically, just so I know I'm not gonna like repeat any past mistakes or anything. There is like Winter CG cannot. I don't remember the GitHub username. I just it's just a thing of Winter CG is not like I don't believe at least it can't push an API, and if one runtime doesn't do it, it won't be like left in the dust or something. Like today, I don't think there are any Winter CG like non-web APIs shipping in any runtime, as an example. And even if, say, the CLI proposal goes through, most people probably won't switch to it for a while, because say if Node implements it, it won't be an LTS for who knows. So I don't really think it's a concern, but I get what you mean. It's understandable. But
Okay, sorry, I have a few things a little bit unrelated. So the first one is responding to Robert on what if Node can implement something differently or cannot implement something, okay? These happened recently, and I need to apologize to Luca Casonato for this, okay, publicly, so that basically myself and others decided to add a feature into the response object.
Okay, sorry.
Well, there is a why, okay? The why is to be compatible with Node Fetch. Okay, now you see the question, okay? So you are, there was, and so we added this feature. It was part of the response objects in the beginning, and people have been, and Luke and people have from the Dino team have been constantly telling people that no, it's not part of the standard. And it's so, and nobody, like we didn't even thought this would ever be a problem at all. So at this point, responding to going back to Robert's point, I think if right now, if we do implement one standard, we are at the risk of us, what we do, if there is a variation, to be the standard on the server, and therefore causing problem for everybody else. So
Yeah.
and this is what we need to, is more that we need to avoid it as much as possible.
So my opinion is that eventually WinterCG should work on making a programmable environment that's good enough for you to completely do your program that works across things.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that means a lot of unification with Node, potentially even some of the slightly messier parts. And this is not universally agreed on within WinterCG. In this case, if this response object property is so widely used and so critical to the ecosystem, maybe WinterCG should eventually consider
but this is
standardizing it at its level and supporting it across environments. A case where we did something related was, we have async context coming, but it's not here yet. So WinterCG articulated, James wrote this, an async local storage, not the entire async local storage API, but a significant subset of it that people can use compatibly across different JavaScript environments. Because some of the methods are kind of bad, and some are analogous to what you'll have with async context. So I think we should continue with these things of standardizing interfaces that are similar to what Node has to enable interoperability as well.
So no, on that specific one, I'm working on the side with Luca to bring it up to what would you, seems everybody's in alignment that needs to be
The
to what would
async
you
local storage?
no the fast response.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Don't
okay,
bring
so
async local
no,
storage thing would be weird.
no, the response on
That's awesome. I'm glad you're doing that.
Hopefully it goes through. There's a little bit of web ideal stuff that I have no clue how to.
What method is it?
Sorry,
what is the method called?
It's not a method. It's basically adding support for async iterators on the response object instead of just streams.
Okay, yeah. That has always been the goal of WhatWig to support that. So
Yeah.
that should be good.
Yeah. So anyway, there is that. So this is the point. Other things, it's about the people that represent Node on those on WinterCG. Okay, we have a Node logo on WinterCG. Okay, and we have people representing Node on WinterCG.
They're not representing Node. They're representing their personal opinion. We have it very clear that Node as a whole does not yet have official representation.
That's the important part. So therefore,
we say Node. Look, it says WinterCG includes participants from.
Okay.
So we're not saying that they're
perfect.
representing
So
Node.
it's very important. Then whenever there is a need for something from Node, this is clearly flagged. Even if this is clearly flagged in the standards repo, whatever is fine.
So this is what we were discussing at the previous collaborator summit mini summit in Ireland.
Yep.
That we need to have or Node should have a way of raising things. So we have this process that James wrote out, and it would be good to find some initial test cases. Maybe async context would be a good case where we have a review process. We say, here, everybody please look at this proposal. Then that can take as long as it wants. Eventually, somebody could write a statement that says Node thinks blah blah blah. Then we have like various review cycles before it lands, and then we collect the results in a page that's easy to read. It's modeled on the standards positions repos that Mozilla and WebKit have. So I'm excited to get that started. Glad that you made that, Robert.
This is more from the Node side, so I guess most of us agree that this winter CG thing is cool. It mostly benefits the other runtimes that want to have cross compatibility, because Node, I guess, is still the big player, so we don't have to care so much per se. There is one point here that might affect us negatively. Is, for example, the socket API is one example. I've seen James' proposal. I think it's great, and we should implement it, but we don't have corporate backing. So it won't be implemented in Node unless somebody is interested in implementing it. So in that way, like, we end up with a winter CG standard that we should implement, but nobody from Node wants to implement it because we don't have corporate backing. How do we resolve that? And another thing, Daniel, I really appreciate your patience with us. You're doing a great job.
No, I'm glad that we're having. Thanks. I'm glad that we're having this open discussion and that people are not holding back any particular criticism. So I think this comes back to what we were discussing in the previous like next 10 thing. We have to figure out the sustainable funding model. We have to, and I think that requires being able to support Node more like supporting more like a contract with a vendor. You have well-defined agreements that something will be done. Standards saying that we're gonna work on supporting a standard, whether it's Quick or one of these web APIs, is a very well-defined task, potentially. I mean, obviously you can do a bad job of it, but we already have good reviewers that are holding whoever would take the task up to ensure quality. So that's what I think we have to do. Any more thoughts? So Andreu?
It was not on about this topic that I wanted to specifically talk about, but I just wanted to mention that it would be good to encourage like paid people who are paid to work on Winter CG to at the very least get the ball rolling on implementing something in distributed open source runtimes such as Node.js. If like not necessarily do the entire work, but at least see if they can, and that would be I think a good thing to encourage in Winter CG. Yeah, about like my topic was so Winter CG, like the common minimum API, tries to stick as close as possible to the web, having things different when it makes sense for server-side runtimes. And by server-side runtimes here, we usually mean things that are different by the nature of things being in server-side runtimes versus in browsers. So there are some things in Node.js that are basically like that if you were to change so that they match with the web, they would be breaking changes, even though they're not specifically needed for, or like, I guess something like the return value of set timeout is arguable whether that is needed, but Dino does it in a different way that does not return an object. So some things like that are they're problematic because we have a runtimes that already implemented according to the web spec and do things like refing and unrefing in different ways. and we like making it so that the WinterCG spec follows Node.js wouldn't be good for those other runtimes, but making it so it follows the web spec without leaving room for changes would not be good for Node.js. So what do we do there?
Yes, thank you so much, Andreu, for your attention to detail in all this. Andreu's been both working on async context as well as on working out some of these finer details in common minimum API. And as you can see, there's a lot of attention to detail being paid in figuring out what makes sense to with respect to node compatibility. Ultimately, I hope that WinterCG makes it so that an increasing set of programs are just sort of transparently that things on Node work on other places. Yeah, Luca?
Yeah, I wanted to respond to a couple of the comments I heard so far. So first of all, I'm very excited that there are the amount of Node contributors that are participating with WinterCG in some way, be that responding to issues or joining the meetings. And I want to make it very clear that like I don't work on Node, I work on Dino. But if I open a issue or a proposal on WinterCG, I want feedback from Node, right? Like that is something I want, and I'm very happy to put in effort to find the right people. But anything that makes my life doing this easier, right? Like this Node.js standards position repository, a list of like, these are the people that frequently work on these things, or some channel for people, not just me, but maybe people that are less familiar with standards in general, to find the right people within the Node project would be like very much appreciated. And these are things that like make contributing to standards just so much easier, right? Like if we have a process that you can follow that is like a step-by-step list of, hey, write an explainer, contact these people by posting an issue in this repository, emailing this email list, or posting in this Slack channel, and then, I don't know, wait 2 weeks for feedback, then that is something that is much easier for people to deal with than saying, find the people that have implemented this specific thing in Node. And that's not to say that this is not something that anyone will ever do. There's definitely people that will do this, and I'm happy to do that. But it's just difficult for people, or it's difficult to expect that like everyone always has the time to do this, right? Like this just goes in reverse to when there's somebody that does not get paid to work on standards from the Node.js project or other folks to open proposals. They want to like have easy ways to contact, I don't know, people from the web browsers and stuff like that.
But Luca, I think we're in a similar situation like we are with web browsers. You know, if you're not Chrome or you're not Node, then you're kind of this little guy who's trying to get the attention. So there's absolutely no expectation of a 2-week SLA or something like that for people to respond to these issues. Instead, the process was, you know, somebody might post something, then it could take forever. People could like not respond for 6 months or forever. Then once there's a thing that people want to say is Node's position, then we have a certain, I can't remember how we set it up, but various weeks of review to confirm that it actually is Node's position. And during that time, we would do this outreach. I don't expect the Node project to publish any particular list of people to contact. That sounds like a lot of work to construct. Instead, what I imagine more is as we start using the Node standards positions repo, then, you know, we talk to people who know other people and we figure out who to contact on a very case-by-case basis. And then eventually that'll become easier over time, but it will be very, you know, very much like based on who has bandwidth to help us work through a particular, you know, issue.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And none of the things that we're saying were like, these are things we should do, but just throwing ideas out there, right? Like what can we do to make this process easier?
Yeah, like Chrome is not going to publish a list of people who you're supposed to reach out to.
Right, absolutely. And like and if the standards position thing works, that will be great. And I think that totally solves the problem.
For what it's worth, I think the project already has structures in place to help you here, working groups and teams. So I would strongly recommend that every single one of these go to the appropriate working group or team, not individual users. There's setups already in the GitHub org for each of them. If there's a missing one, that would be, I think, something definitely to raise. So for example, the CLI thing should go to the tooling working group, or is that a team? That's technically a team. I imagine the socket one probably should be raised in the web server frameworks team. So like if you want to set a process, I'm a little worried. I'm following the standards position repo now. I had seen it. I hadn't fully read through it, but I think I just did. And I am a little bit worried that having one place that covers all the different topics for Node, it's fine if it's a documentation repo. That's cool. But the same reason why I do not follow the Node core, I do not follow the Node repo. It is too noisy to have this many conversations in one repo.
So would it work to mention those teams in an issue? Or
Absolutely.
Okay,
That is a
Yeah.
perfect way. I
that
think, to do
that sounds great, because we could very much say someone files an issue and then someone else who's involved in standards positions triages that to the appropriate team.
Perfect. That would work. There's a team set up for every single one of working groups or repos.
Okay. Do you have anything more to say about WinterCG or any of this?
I've had my hand up for a little while, so I just wanted to add that, like, I certainly have no intention to invalidate anybody's work. My point is, we like the standards positions repo is the perfect thing. It just hasn't happened yet. And what I'm trying to avoid the last minute feedback, like that something's an issue, and without the investment into actually like running through that process and trying, like investing some time to get some effort from the project, I think that's what you're going to end up with. And I'm just trying to avoid that. So
Yeah,
I think the standards positions, it sounds like that's something, you want to get going and get pushing. I think that's like a perfect way to do it. And so that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I personally want to work on this, and I'm glad that James has created this repo. I think he was busy for a while. Luca, do you have more to say?
Nope.
Or if not, Owen?
Yeah, I'll be quick. I just wanted to share some anecdotal experience from kind of a similar, I guess, exercise coming from the web components community group, where we have a lot of features that we're trying to help flesh out the usage of web components with across multiple browsers, and we present a report to implementers every year. And to the credit of a lot of the browser vendors, they created, just like you've described, a standards position repo specifically on, are you going to support XYZ Chrome side? So as part of our report, so this maybe would be analogous to the WinterCG, we would aggregate or open positions at each of those browsers and aggregate in our report, but also at least get the word out there to them. So, within WinterCG, happy to share more of that, but just wanted to share some anecdotal experience to the similar other side of the coin that may be applicable here. So thanks.
Okay, I don't see any hands up, so just want to mention a different standards effort that I'm involved in, Cyclone DX. This is for an SBOM format. It does tie into like the Node NPM ecosystem a bit. There's this PURL format that we're also working on standardizing within TC54, which has a way of referring to an NPM module at a particular version. There's also this other project, Omnibore, that has a reference to like a particular piece of software, like a code thing, where PRL is more like semantic by the package manager. Anyway, we're doing a series of kind of knowledge sharing about these these things, and people are welcome to join. So I'm kind of wondering, what should Node's software supply chain security strategy be? Do we like Salsa? How are we going to make NPM secure, Darcy?
We only have like 5 more minutes left on this.
We have 20 more minutes. We have 20 minutes. Tell me how NPM is going to be. Okay, yeah. No, not. This has way more content involved in it than Corpac. Matteo, you seem to.
Yeah, Salsa. Okay, I do have opinions. Okay. Oh no, that's not. That's so unusual. So I have. So I don't know. Many of you are aware. Node.js is currently going through uh, security audit. Okay.
What does that mean?
Well, it's a
Sorry,
security audit.
what does a security audit actually entail? Like, how do they perform any kind of meaningful audit?
Well, I'm not the provider, so there's a long.
Maybe it would be nice if some Node collaborator like knew what was being tested.
Oh, I am aware. It's just it's a long response. Okay, it's not. If you want, I can show you what's been done and include fuzzing our dependencies, fuzzing Node.js itself, finding C++ related issues, as well as auditing our supply chain security strategy and a bunch of other stuff. So it's been quite a lot of work has been done on this front. This has been done a lot by the security working group, Raphael has been a lot of involved with. So there's a full train of this. As part of this discussion, Salsa came out, okay? And that model, it's my opinion at least, but it's shared by others, is fundamentally incompatible with a trust organization. It's yes, it's fundamentally incompatible with trust. So it's Salsa treats collaborators as an attack vector. So does not trust collaborators, does not trust people that have commit access to the repo. And therefore, it's a distrustful organization. It's designed to protect against certain chunk of attacks related to espionage or other things like that. And it does not allow trust. Okay, it consider a single collaborator a potential malicious person.
Sorry, we're talking about the release signing that it happened on GitHub Actions thing, right?
No.
Okay, what is
so one of the things? So okay, Salsa says that one of the core tenet of the Salsa framework is that you do not like that an individual is an attack vector. So no single individual.
Please be more concrete.
One of the guiding principles is trust code, not individual. Yeah, one of the guiding principles is trust code, not individuals. So this means that, which is the absolute opposite of what Node.js does. Okay.
So Darcy raising his hand a lot in the back.
So, okay. Sorry, I don't know how to explain. I want to finish what I keep being interrupted. So sorry. It's so it's fundamentally incompatible. Okay. And it's so for a lot of those things is, for example, our full release process is completely incompatible with Salsa. So I'm mentioning a lot of people here. So I hope I
yeah, if you wanted to go to Richard, either way. I can respond to that. Yeah. Why don't you go first, Richard, and then we go to Darcy.
For awareness, if you want to see, Beth went through the Salsa. It was a questionnaire for Salsa, and actually, we have drafted responses to the Salsa questionnaire at that point in time, and it didn't look good for Node at all. Yeah, like Matteo is right. There are a lot of things that the current way that Node is set up, if you wanted to achieve the various Salsa levels, we would have to fundamentally change a lot of the process around how we do commits, sign things, the metadata, even like who can commit to the repository. At the moment, we have hundreds of people. Is it about 100 people, collaborators, that theoretically have a commit bit that can commit to the Node repo. I mean, it comes up every now and then. Do we need to give that many people commit access? But we do. that is the current model of Node. So, you know, there are fundamental shifts for that. I think Michael also put it in the chat, the security working group have been also talking about it. And I think they're also going through the questions and trying to come up with answers. But fundamentally, you know, we're not in a great position. It's not terrible. There are things that we are doing. You know, we do restrict who can do releases and stuff. But even that, there's things in the various levels which it will be a challenge for us.
This is not to be said that Node is insecure. We typically answer those same points with different mechanisms that are not what Salsa consider valid. Like, for example, our release branch, everybody has write access to the domain, but the release branches are protected. So this is one of the example. Collaborators needs to, like, there's a lot of mechanisms that are different from what Salsa mandates that it makes Node.js secure. But we operate in a world of trust and not distrust. So it's not possible to, like, it's completely antithetical, the starting point of Node versus
Is that questionnaire answer set available?
It should be in a public issue. I mean, my recommendation would be there's actually a number of initiatives that have gone over the last year. Marco did a lot of great work in terms of like automating our dependency updates, which I think fits into our supply chain security. He's currently looking at SBOMs. He looked at Cyclone DX in particular. I think that's the one of the two that we decided makes sense. We're looking at this year, like trying to make progress on how we build our dependencies. So if you have like a specific thing that says like, hey, should we be doing Salsa? The security working group is the right group to go and like try and drive that discussion. I think Salsa is, I don't think we got to the point where, you know, the project said, no, we're not going to do it. As Richard said, Beth invested some time, did an analysis, but like there's been no volunteers to say like, let's move that forward or decide, you know, are we going to try and get to level 1 or is it impossible? You know, we've stalled out at here's the initial look.
You want to? I mean, I think that's the biggest challenge is we've looked at it from a what are the questions? We've answered that as to what the current state of Node is, but we haven't got to the point where, you know, maybe it's a security working group to come with a recommendation, but, you know, Node is a distributed project. So I don't think many people would just stand up and say, this is what Node should be doing. They might suggest it, but if you're asking what does Node think of Salsa, well, the answer is probably going to be mixed. You know, you're going to get all sorts of answers depending on who you talk to. Your question, yes, the responses that were there at the time are in, I know Beth's answers are in an issue in the build repo. The security working group have issues for the things that Ulysses and Marco have been looking at. But yeah, I think I'm not saying that Node's perfect. There's always room to improve how we do things, but it's got to be evolutionary and we've got to persuade people to come along on the journey. We can't easily just say we're now going to change completely how we do, you know, development in Node, because without the agreement and broad things, it just wouldn't fly.
Okay, we have on the queue Wes and then Michael and then that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, so at some point we did, a long time ago, we did a values session about on the values of the Node.js core project. This was back in, I don't know who were there in the room with the full wall of post-its. I don't know, it was quite a nice thing to watch. We were in Vancouver, I think, or in Montreal, I don't remember. I brought it up because I'm citing Miles, but this is part of the foundation of what we are, is at its core, Node.js is a collection of people working towards a shared goal. And which, from my point of view, is very hard to say with the value of Salsa, putting the code before people. Either it's people before code or code before people. It's very hard to reconcile the two frameworks at the same time. sorry. So this is my point of view on the this is the crux of the problem, okay? And what Salsa wants and versus what we want. Sorry.
And that's great because that's actually, I want to build on that. I think fundamentally what is going to happen here if we push this forward is that people are going to look at the Node project and say, bad, because we don't meet it. But actually, what we have to tell the story of is no, good, Salsa bad. I'm sorry, but it's not, it's fundamentally incompatible. That type of thinking of code, don't trust people, trust code, is fundamentally broken. The whole point of this is to trust people and to figure out mechanisms to support finding trustworthy people and empowering them to do good work. And that type of thinking is just never going to happen, like in this project for sure. But frankly, it should probably not happen in any project. I mean, I think that is like a dangerous foundation as an ideal. And so when we talk about, like, I don't think there's a lot of details. We're also looking at it for Express stuff and what we need to do. And I think there's a lot of details we can get on board with. But if it is a fundamental disagreement about what is good, again, very subjective, then I think something like this is going to be shoved down the throats of project maintainers and force them to comply, even though we think it's bad, because it's a security initiative. And like some people said that this is the only way you're going to do it. And that is, again, fundamentally broken system. And we should fight that. We should all fight that.
We better be pretty active in our response to that because, you know, CISA published a thing like a month ago citing.
Yeah, but nobody's listening to us.
Yeah,
we've
but,
been saying this.
So this is not just a Node core thing. I mean, there's also the NPM adoption of or lack of adoption of Salsa,
which
has reasons.
is
I'm
not no,
saying
no,
is
and there are people who have been fighting that. I mean, like literally nobody appears to be listening to the maintainers of these things in these
maybe
conversations.
Darcy's listening.
Darcy was listening and he tried to fight the I'm giving them the mic. Sorry, I can't protect you. Oh, I don't know. Okay. Who's first? Go ahead. No, you're right. You're right. Sorry, I'm just.
I just want to add arguments about the mentality behind the thing aside. I think it would be very difficult to implement from an infrastructure point of view. If you're generating JavaScript code from TypeScript or so as your build process, that is rather easy to do in GitHub Actions, but Node is compiling for so many different platforms. And Salsa does have instructions for how to set up GitHub Actions in a secure way, for example, to get these certified builds, but we can't do that for all of the platforms we have. And we do have a ton of custom infrastructure, a ton of custom server architectures that were provided by companies like IBM. And we need someone to put in the time to get that running on custom infrastructure. And I don't see that happening anytime soon.
So I've tried to hold off a bit just because there's probably 6 points on here that I have problems with, or initiatives.
And
there's only
we're in this part of the slide.
yeah, and I know, yeah. And so I don't think that like I'll get all my ideas out in like one comment here. But yeah, at least with Salsa, it's specifically not transitive as well. And I think a lot of people in this room would agree that like there's like most of the tooling you want, security tooling you want, understands that once you consume something which has all these other dependencies, really you're taking on the risk of that thing and its dependencies. It's never just, you can't separate those two things, especially when they end up executing in the same runtime. And of course, yeah, if we get realms, great. You know, if we get into, you know, everybody should be using endo, you know, like and performance dies, everything else. But there's a number of different issues I have with each and every one of those points, and I could expand on each and every one of them in different ways: P URLs, SBOMs, Cyclone DX, NPM's own security model and features or lack thereof, the CVE ecosystem. But yeah, specifically with Salsa, I think that's something that's getting pushed on the ecosystem, and a lot of us have been pushing back. And I didn't know that one phrase or frame of reference that Matteo brought up, but the fact that it does prioritize code over people, that's also a huge issue I have with it. But yeah, feel free to hit me up if you want all the nitty gritty insights. And, you know, I spent a year before I left NPM working on this with our internal security team at the time, reading white papers on provenance and attestations and what value you do and don't get from that kind of stuff. And I can tell you a lot about what SBOMs will and won't give you. And so I don't think it's something that we should be prioritizing, or that technically probably gives you much more security posturing than
What should we prioritize?
writing good software. There's a lot of things we can prioritize. Like, I don't think there's a panacea, right? I don't think there's a silver bullet. And I think, unfortunately, some of these bullet points have like come across as like they're trying to map the world, right? Like, and SBOMs especially are trying to do that. And if you could do that, hypothetically, if we could go in the future and we do have an SBOM that's fully accurate, you could build a unified package manager for every single piece of software, right? That's truly, if we think about it that way. And so the reason why I think I'm in a unique position, I think some of my former colleagues are actually in unique positions, and definitely hit them up. Luke's here, still working on NPM, Roy's here, is that when you build a package manager, I think you understand a lot of these problems with like transitive dependencies, trust, the web of trust, obviously. And obviously everybody here who works on module resolution within Node also understands that as well. So I think that, and the folks that are, as Richard was saying, like building the releases, like we understand where there is and isn't value in certain tools that are trying to, shame us because we like are still using GPG keys to sign things. I don't know, like cool. Like,
I did want to.
List JSON format to sign things where it's not secure. That's the rule.
Sorry. I just wanted to highlight, like, it creates this, I just find that ultimately this dangerous force of nature that, create this gravity, like inside big enterprises like that, because this is the stuff that makes up for a very good promo package, right? Like that people inside these corporations are working towards. So it creates that gravity force that becomes a force of nature. It's really hard to work against. So yeah, and we talk, we spent 2 days here talking about other, all this stuff that we could be building right in Focus instead. So yeah, Michael.
Yeah, I just wanted, the answer of what should we prioritize, that the security working group has a proposal for security initiatives for 2024. I pasted into the chat the 5 things that like people are interested in and volunteering to work on. Not to say we couldn't do other things, but we would need new volunteers to show up. So, it's continuing on the permission model, continuing to look at the assessment against best practices. There was a lot of work put in the last year to assess how we stand versus OSSF best practices. There's work going on about automating our security release process, which will let us, like, if we have to do security releases, we can turn them around more quickly. There is work Marco's looking at, including SBOMs with Node.js, which is like, I think, a key component of some of these other things, and then auditing and improving the build process for Node.js dependencies. So if the question was, what should we prioritize? Those are the things that I think are being prioritized based on the work of the group right now.
yeah, I just want to follow up with everything I said. It's like my own personal opinion, and like I don't ever want to be a blocker. And if the industry decides that we need to do salsa and have provenance everywhere, like that's like everybody can come to me and be like, sorry, you're wrong. So and I'm I don't want to block, or I want to encourage people to do things they think add value. So that's just want to preface like my previous comments with, as Michael said, there is work that is going on in these spaces. So I encourage the folks that are doing that. Also, let's have chats, because
so we're at the end of the session. I did have another slide mentioning web standard stuff, but sorry, did you have something to say? But I don't know if people want to continue this security discussion for another 15 minutes. We still have the room, and I feel like we're talking about important things.
So removing the problem of Node. Okay, so first of all, if you are interested in a Salsa response or answer, this is being worked on at the foundation level. A group of people is essentially providing a response on that, okay? So that it's at least is something that is shared to most of the projects in the foundation, okay? If not all, but I'm not saying all because it's
The OpenJS Foundation.
OpenJS Foundation. Oh.
Okay, because this is being pushed from OpenSSF, just from the other.
Yeah, this
from
is
the other side of LF.
Yeah, exactly. I know it's fun, right? It's fun. We agree to disagree, essentially.
What is IBM's position on this anyway?
I have no idea. That would be fun. That would be fun to hear. Okay, what's the IBM position on the topic? Okay, but it's a fun problem to discuss to some extent. However, the truth, even so, if Node.js wanted, we could be Salsa compliant. Okay, we will need to completely change how we work and how we interact with each other. Okay, we need to treat each other. You might be a spy. Okay, no, this is the truth. Okay, this is the truth. Okay, I'm not trusting you. Okay, but the problem doesn't remain the fact that any stuff on npm would ever be able to be Salsa compliant, ever. So, which is then bother the question mark of,
Oh, that's Salsa level 4, which doesn't exist, right?
I don't know if there is a way for a project that is distributed via npm to even be Salsa compliant.
Yeah, you do the GitHub Actions thing. There's a thing.
Yeah, but what about your dependencies?
Well,
You have no
presumably
dependencies,
they'll
right?
do it also, and then recursively it becomes just like an SBOM, right? That's the concept. That's what it said in the blog post.
Sorry.
If you read the FAQ, the first thing, Salsa is not a model that includes transitive dependencies. Now, what that means in the Salsa spec, right? What if you bundle your dependencies? What if you distribute, like in this case, those aren't technically dependencies then, right? Like, it's an interesting conceptually.
But the things that are brought into the build process, like as dev build dependencies, those have to be listed in that list of GitHub hashes, right?
I'm just gonna. We have been rolling this out. I just want to share a great thing. Here's I just went into my notifications and just looked for the last one. Here's a report for the MIMEDB package. Anybody want to take a guess at what our score is out of 10?
Do you want to link to it and then I could put it up here on the screen?
I can link to it in a second. Okay, it's a 3.4. Okay, so that is to me, if I was a user and had no idea, I'd be like, that's a failure.
Is this the OpenSSF package scoring thing? Or
I
what
believe so.
scoring
Yeah,
is
it's using
this?
their like GitHub action thing to generate a report.
Where are you looking up this score? Like,
I know, but I think these things all go into the Salsa. I know more. I'm just trying to take a real world example here and just try to point.
Which scoring definition is this?
I know. I know it's not the Salsa thing. I'm just saying the point is this is just some highly used open source package that is failing all of these points, and Salsa is even more. So I was just trying to find a real world example and see. And there's nothing wrong with this package. Objective. This particular one, MIMEDB, is super basic and like none of these things really matter for this thing, but it's getting a really bad score, right? And so like if we define a goal that puts these things into a state that makes them look bad, then our end users who do not know the details of how this all works are going to look at it and they're going to draw the wrong conclusion. So we're not helping security here by letting our users draw the wrong conclusion. And I think that's like, the point is we could change a lot to make this pass. I could set up a bot. So one of the things here is how many, commits in the last days. We got a 0 out of 10 on that one because this package is for MIME types that don't change but yearly or something. So we're never gonna, so I'll set up a GitHub bot that just commits daily. And like, there we go, 10 out of 10, right? Like this is not, the graph will look great. It does not help anybody drawing a conclusion about whether this is a secure package or not, right? It tells nothing about the security posture. It is a metric that we are trying to hit, and so is the salsa stuff, that is not helping us tell our story as maintainers trying to do good work. It is not helping our users understand their supply chain security posture. It is not helping there. So if we can find something that does help, that's fine. Also, the other thing is all these PRs, man, they're locking the GitHub action to generate these reports, which means that now we got to like run another dependency update for an entirely other thing. It's adding a ton of work. Somebody's going and doing this. I love whoever is, I can't remember who is doing this for Express right now. It's, I should know that because they're doing great work and I need to know their name. Carlos.
Ulysses, maybe? Okay.
Serrano. It's Carlos Serrano who's doing the PRs for these, but Ulysses is helping run the group. And I'm very happy that these people are doing this because I'm not going to, because I don't think this is helping. But if they do, that's great. But you know who's going to have to go and update that GitHub action for the next 10 years? Not Carlos. I mean, I would love it if Carlos comes in and joins the project, but like the people who think that this has no value. Right, me. I mean, I'm not saying it has no value. I should be a little bit gentler in my words, but I think the value is dubious at best, and we as the maintainers are the ones who have to foist the burden of this in the long term. So we need to be a lot better if we're going to start doing this stuff about how we roll it out, how it's generated, all these things that like end up being burden on the maintainers that make us have these sort of another thing kind of reaction, right? Like, we should think about that when we're designing the spec. And if it is not able to be implemented in a way that doesn't require massive restructuring of projects, then like the spec is bad. The proposal is bad if it requires every single project to like spend the next 3 years restructuring itself to meet it.
So one thing, Fastify passes all the basics, 100%. 87% of the silver and 50% of the gold requirement of that same thing without doing anything. Like this is our normal, the way of open.
What metric is this?
This is the OpenSSF best practice score. The score.
Yeah,
that's the scorecard. Okay, that's the scorecard. It's not. It was done the assessment, but generic. We had to change nothing. Like literally, it was just how we were doing it. I think we had to turn on a flag on GitHub that required the PR for being reviewed, required an approval for getting merged. But this was it, which is a best practice anyway. So I'm not. This is fine. But on the salsa stuff, we did a security. Fastify done a security audit. As part of it, for whatever reason, there was included a salsa stuff which we didn't ask for. So these are other topics. Okay. Turns out that Fastify scored nothing from salsa, like close to nothing. Okay, because of the way we work. We trust individuals. So it's people have access to the main branch for doing their things. Okay, and we have, I don't know, 150 repos. And if we needed to set up automated releases for 150 repos, it's a lot of automation work to set up. It's just unfeasible. Like I would love for it to be feasible, but it is a different topic and have provenance for all and so on and so forth. But for each one of them, you need to create a NPM token. So it's a long thing to maintain. Okay.
I got this one. I mean, even if you went and did that, like there is still a fundamental gap. There's no two-factor auth on automated publish. So you cannot safely automated publish, and that's a requirement. And NPM and GitHub has not implemented that feature despite being asked for years. So like to say that we're going to say that it's not secure unless you automated publish, and then the fundamental two-factor auth, the most critical thing to ensure, even if you can't push to main, I don't care. If you can restrict main all you want. If any CI can publish without a human, it's not secure, as it's less secure than you publishing from your local machine and two-factor authing it after a good build. So like, I just think that's why I think these things need to be fundamentally thought through where we're at to make sure that we can say we're going to require your security requirement is going to need automated builds. Then we have to actually provide a automated build and deploy setup that is more secure than the local one, and we're not doing that today.
It's technically possible, I think, to do that in the form of you need the token is what it is. Okay, it does require 2FA, but the if you put it as in an environment on GitHub, you can then restrict that for running to certain individuals, and that requires a direct approval by human and so on.
Sure, but it's still, once you say then your GitHub, this is a hard one to, I think unless you have two-factor auth on addition to that, you are still actually less secure than a careful single maintainer publishing from their laptop. A careful single maintainer will have gone through more procedure to ensure that that thing is the thing that they wanted it to be than any CI published without a two-factor auth step. I'm not saying all maintainers do that, but I'm just saying a careful maintainer will be more secure publishing from their laptop than from CI.
So just to wrap up the conversation, like on the security working group, we went mostly through all the points that were discussed today, and we have like materials on, for example, SBOM. We had a decision, like we chose Cyclone DX. For example, we have already had this discussion, and we also had like talk about Salsa in the past, because we were looking on how to improve our supply chain, but we we decided not to go in this direction, and these decisions are all documented. So unless there is a good reason to go back and rediscuss everything from scratch, I guess like we could write the position of Node.js in the position, the standard position that we talked about before, and agree or disagree.
Sorry, quick point of order, because we're over time. If anybody needs to leave, we have 3 people here who can, escort you out, so you don't have to wait for the security people. So just let them know, and we're not going to imprison you here. But I want to allow the conversation to continue. So,
just a side note, I didn't read I read Salsa like 6 months ago when it was announced and stuff like that. But is it, as of today, possible to maintain an open source project with a 100% score on it? Because if it's not possible, then there is no need for the conversation. If you cannot reach some requirement at the highest level while doing your job, then it means that it's taking into account false or wrong number of, or wrong way to compute that number and that end result. And I'm saying that for Salsa, but it's the same with a lot of other tool and everything. So.
No, I think you're right. Like, has anybody here ever done web accessibility? And remember the score, AA, AAA? You know what AAA was? Like you would have to have a phone service. Somebody could call in and talk to you, read you the website. Like that was too permissive, right? Like I don't think anybody could ever build websites for AAA specification for the WCAG, right? So, or if you do, you have like incredible resources. So I think that the levels of Salsa, obviously, they get more and more harder to achieve, obviously. But and I want to be mindful that we are over. But Marco, your point about like if we want to talk about prioritization, or if we actually want to do those things again, sounds like security working group already did work to say, hey, this is the kind of stuff we're going to focus on. I would just be mindful saying if we're focusing on SBOMs, what does that mean? Like, is an SBOM accurate? So that to me, this is the biggest question: is an SBOM accurate? If it is, then it means we can utilize an SBOM for tooling purposes. And my problem with SBOMs, every single one I've seen, is not accurate enough to be a document that can be used by other tooling to reproduce the software.
Yeah,
which means to me it's not accurate and potentially something we shouldn't prioritize. That's
yeah, I want to clarify on this. And when I talk about the SBOM, I talk about like as not something that should that we intend to distribute, but something that we intend to keep it private, so it's accurate enough for the needs of like as inventory and like checking on the supply chain, what's in the supply chain of Node.js. So I think that right now we have something that is accurate enough, because if we add like package URL of, for example, of a dependency, we trust that whoever added that manually is trusted in the organization. So it's more for inventory rather than for, I don't know, like security research or all this kind of stuff that requires a very accurate SBOM that probably we don't have anyways.
Yeah, I see Michael's hands up, and then I would like to.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the, like, I think a lot of these things, to get to the perfect answer is really hard, and it's really like totally hard to understand how we could even get there. So things like this SBOM, I see the value in us trying to see what we can do. And we might learn that, like, hey, yeah, we've used the tools, what's generated isn't useful to us. Or we may find, hey, we made a nice step towards the endpoint. So I see this like at least 50% as a learning process for the project to better understand SBOMs, see what we can and can't do. There's some interesting things like, I'd like us to be able to take some of the info we have from the vulnerability assessment repo and have that, communicated more easily to projects. So like maybe SBOMs, like there are some fields in there that might let us do that. So just to sort of say, I think there's a lot of interesting outcomes that we will get by looking at SBOMs, particularly given like all the interest. Whether it ends up that we have fully accurate, useful SBOMs, I don't know, but the path of seeing if we can get there is actually interesting.
So if we all agree that they're not accurate, like, should we call them something other than SBOMs? Because we're saying they're partial, right? We're saying they're not, and potentially you're saying that they're in an inventory, but they're an incomplete inventory potentially. And we understand that if we're going to verify them, there's going to be humans that need to verify that they're actually, because we don't trust the tooling. So is it just, could we be naming them something different? Because I just want to be mindful that I think there's a bit of a perception or marketing that comes with SBOMs that you have a complete inventory. So if you have it, then there's an inventory there that exists of what's inside of the materials, like you're not hiding toxic waste in your cereal, right? Like you have a ingredients section on the cereal box, right? And it says everything that's in it, the instruction or like the ingredients are there, right? Like that's kind of to an SBOM.
Yeah.
To people that are consuming or hear that Node has an SBOM,
No, we're not going to publicize it.
Okay, so could we use a different terminology? I think we're using some tooling, right? That's helping us give us insight about some of the components that we have. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like even if we call it something else, but in reality it's an SBOM and it uses like that's it's an SBOM, but I think like SBOM has different levels, and like it's not like you don't have to publish it 100%, or like it's not compulsory to publish it. And I think then when we had discussion with the foundation about because I think there was some discrepancies between what we were thinking also about the SecLonDX standard rather than the SPDX, which is the one supported by the foundation. We made it very clear that it was something that we were exploring, and we wanted to keep it to ourselves and not to publicize it. Also because like saying that Node.js has an SBOM is very dangerous, because people then will actually go check the SBOM and find all the inaccuracies, so that it's like counterproductive. And that's why we made it very clear that this is for internal use, will remain private, will not be published, and is experimental. So that said, I don't think there is anything bad about like having an SBOM in general in our use case. So like I wouldn't hide it or calling in another name, because like I don't think it's something to hide.
I'm not saying we hide it. I'm just saying we call it what it is, which is not a software bill of materials, because there's no verification of its accuracy to say that those are the bill of materials, unless you are manually reviewing it and ensuring that those are accurate. And I know that to your point about the differing specs, like, because I've looked at them, SPDX specifically mentions go look at the NPM spec for what identifiers are for the JavaScript ecosystem, which is why I have a problem with the PURL work because those do not map one-to-one with the NPM ecosystem, because there are non-PURL type identifiers for packages that don't map into the SBOM ecosystem today. And so the references are all wrong and all these other things. So like there's a lot of problems, I think, with the current CycloneDX and SPDX implementations that generate poor ledgers, poor inventories that I don't think we can verify. So the reason why I'm saying if we reframe it, we just remarket it internally, I can get more on board with us, doing this work. But to me, totally what I said at the very beginning was if the SBOM initiatives that are out there, their ultimate goal is to map the entire world software component ecosystem, we will, the golden age would be to have a unified package manager essentially at the end of the day. You would be able to do that if these tools do get to the point that they are able to map all these different ecosystems. And I think that's a bit, it's
ultimately,
a lofty goal.
That's somehow what some of the big companies are trying to do, make sure that they
I
have
know
their
that's what
own
they're trying to
internal
do. I don't
inventory.
know if it's achievable.
And oh yeah, please participate in the PURL stuff. You could join the CycloneDX Slack. Come join the hash PURL room that I created. We're gonna have meetings. Okay, yeah, and give them your corrections. Sorry.
Can I request humbly not to request that everybody goes to a whole new set of meetings to make this happen? I'm serious. I think you should take what you're working on and bring it to the security working group OpenJS meeting and present it. The people who are in this room go to way more meetings than most people want to in the first place. So saying the only way we're going to make progress is by coming to more meetings is a fairly untenable option, unfortunately.
Good point. You are welcome to come. Also, I'll try to pass on feedback. Thank you for raising this. Okay, cool. So we're
Like, I think you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, you're doing great with that.
okay. Thank you. Well, the real applause goes to the Node.js build team. I'm sorry I'm saying this after Richard left, but yeah, let's round of applause for them for making sure we have good security.
I guess we should conclude now because we only have like half of the room. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. And the session facilitators, make sure you sign the camera thing for freely. Okay, cool. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. Hopefully see you in the next summit. I'm not sure when that's going to happen. There's some talks between I think Ray's talking to some I think it's Medellin JS to like organize one in Colombia. So Medellin. So if people are interested in the next summit, please check out the summit report. And I think that's it. Thanks everyone. Thanks Bloomberg for hosting us.
Bye.
So you can